Marvel. Rescue Iron Man's father at the beginning. Chapter 61. Through the explanation of Lucy, the person in charge of the disaster control department, Colin also roughly understood the ins and outs of it. The disaster control department and Adrian started disputes and conflicts around the ownership of these space junks. What I have to say is that Ed Ryan is still very business-minded. He took the lead in signing a contract with the people of the city government, trying to enter the Stark building for repair and cleaning, hoping to collect those space junks. However, the collection of these space junks is the responsibility of the disaster control department. Therefore, this move by Adrian was blocked by the relevant person in charge. Chairman, this is what happened. Please rest assured that we will resolve this matter soon. Forget it, let me handle this matter. Then there is Chairman Lau. Seeing what Colin said, Lucy had no choice but to give up. After all, this is the territory of the Stark industry. Besides, the Disaster Control Department was originally a joint venture between Colin and the federal government. Decision. At the moment, Colin also looked at Ed Ryan with great interest, his eyes flickering. Facing Colin's gaze, Adrian's expression showed tension, awe and emotion. During the Battle of New York, Colin turned the tide and repelled the Chitauri's Attack 15, becoming a hero admired by everyone. Even Ed Ryan has heard about it for a long time. Building is Colin's property. Colin pointed to the space junk left in the hall, and said to Adrian, "You also want to recycle these space junk." Suppressing the resentment in his heart, Adrian nodded irresolutely. That's right, although we don't have the ability of Mr. Colin and Avengers to fight back against the alien invaders, but we also hope to use some meager abilities to help clean up and repair Stark building. You know, in order to seize this once-in-a-lifetime development opportunity, Adrian signed a contract with the New York City government at the right time, and purchased a lot of equipment for this purpose, almost putting his life and wealth into it. He thought he would be able to win this time, but who would have thought that a disaster control department would come out halfway and disrupt his plan? If he loses this opportunity, it means that he will have nothing, and he will also have to bear huge amounts of debt crisis, which is unacceptable for Ed Ryan, who also has the task of supporting his family. Colin couldn't help snorting when he heard that. What a meager ability. Ed Lien just coveted the benefits behind the Chitauri weapon, otherwise he wouldn't have expended so much energy. Repairing the Stark building. This matter can't be done by others. We Stark Industries can handle it by ourselves. Mr. Colin, I beg you to give me a chance. I have put all my wealth and life into it. If I fail, it will be a waste of time. These space junks may not be worth mentioning to the Stark industry, but to the Stark industry I am extremely important. Colin plucked his ears impatiently, and was about to order Mike to expel the other party, when the mechanical and electronic sound that had not been heard for 10 years sounded again. Facing Ed Ryan's request, please make your choice. Option 1. Deny Adrian's request. Mission completed. Reward Zanpakuto Harinmaru from Death God World. Option 2. Accept Adrian's request. The task is completed, and the reward is to summon Dormammu's Forbidden Tome from the Marvel world. Option 3. Conquer Adrian. The task is completed, and the blueprint of Pacifist PX from One Piece world will be rewarded. Colin frowned, and a bright light flashed in his eyes. In the past 10 years, the selection system has been in a dormant state. Colin thought that the selection system would be permanently silent, but today it was finally triggered again, which made Colin very excited. As in the past, this time the system still gave me 3 choices. Since it was the first system trigger after 10 years, Colin couldn't help but become cautious. After many choices, Colin is familiar with it. For him, it is not difficult to implement any of these 3 options. What is important is the rewards and benefits it can bring. Harinmaru is the saber of Hitsugaya Toshiro in the Death God world, the strongest Zanpakuto of the Ice and Snow department. Dahanglian Binglunwan has a wide attack range and additional ice and snow damage, especially after the swastika is removed, it can change the color of the world. If Colin didn't have a weapon at hand, he might have chosen the Harinmaru, but now he already has the Agamotto Spear, one of the 3 holy weapons in the magic world, and if he chooses a saber, it will be repeated, and there is no need for it. Next is the Forbidden Tome that summons Dormammu. What is the use of this thing? Could it be that learning the rituals in the tome would make Dormammu descend into the world and fall into eternal darkness? Colin doesn't have the hobby of being a servant of darkness. After skimming the first two rewards, Colin's attention was quickly locked on the third option reward, the Pacifist PX blueprint. The Pacifist PX is a humanoid weapon developed by the world government based on the appearance of Bartholomew Bear and the moves of the General Kizaru. The cost of a Pacifist PX is the same as that of a warship, and it is an important part of the Navy's combat power. Not only is it powerful, but most importantly, it can be mass-produced. Looking at the Marvel world, if you want to rule the roost, you can't do it alone, you have to have a group of your own younger brothers. For example, Iron Man's Iron Legion, Ultron's Ultron Legion, Thanos' Dark Order and so on. As long as the Pacifist PX reaches a certain amount, you can even form your own pacifist army. At that time, many things will not require Colin to come in person, just issue a random order, and the pacifist army will be able to blast the enemy into a hornet's nest with thousands of laser beams. Just thinking about this scene makes people feel very shocked. Woolen cloth. Thinking of this, Colin couldn't help feeling a little bit of anticipation in his heart, so Colin soon had an idea. Mr. Colin, I need these space junks very much now. I hope you will raise your hand and give me a chance. Why? Ed in front of him was still begging bitterly. Although you have signed a contract with the city government, we have an agreement with the Federation 603, so you can't drag these space junk away. Does it mean that all my efforts will be in vain? Hearing this, Edlian's eyes darkened and his face was ashen. Unexpectedly, the next moment Colin changed the subject and said, however, if you can analyze the Chitauri technology for me from these space junks, I don't mind giving you a share of the action. You mean to let me work for you? That's right. After all, Stark Industries is not some sort of charity. If you want to gain wealth, you have to exchange it with corresponding talents. Colin smiled. Edrian is a talent in electronics and mechanical engineering, which is what Stark Industries is currently lacking. If they can recruit the other party, then Stark Industries' talent pool will be raised to a higher level. Ed Ryan couldn't help being slightly taken aback when he heard Colin's words. Back then, the reason why Edrian decided to recycle these space junks was to keep his technological talents from being buried, and at the same time to let his family live a good life. Right now Edrian is penniless in order to purchase equipment, and there is no way out. Besides, if he can join Stark Industry, he will have a good income and good development prospects. Perhaps this is a stage to display his talents, and more importantly the most important thing is that you can let your family live a prosperous life. After weighing the two, Ed Ryan nodded almost without hesitation. Okay, everything is according to Mr. Colin's wishes. Obviously, there are not many choices in front of Aridin, and he can't think of any better way out except to defect to Colin. Therefore, Edrian accepted Colin's offer without hesitation. As long as you do things for me well, I will never betray you. Colin nodded slightly, then patted Ed Ryan's shoulder, and said meaningfully. By the same token, if someone dares to betray and divulge relevant technological secrets, then he should know what the consequences will be. Ed could not help but tremble when he heard this, and believed in what Colin said. When recalling Colin's terrifying mighty blow that pierced the sky, he couldn't help but take a breath, and instantly dispelled all the unreasonable thoughts in his mind that shouldn't exist. Offending Colin is no joke. Ed Ryan has no doubts. If he dares to offend Colin, then he will definitely end up dead without a place to bury him. As for Colin, he doesn't worry about Ed's loyalty at all. If Ed dares to be double-minded, then Colin doesn't mind using the Lord of the Soul Ring to completely reverse the opponent's will. After all, by integrating Mind Gem and Lord of the Gods, one can easily manipulate a person's spiritual will. Okay, this is not a place to talk about things, I will take you to a place. Where? Don't ask too much, you will know when you arrive. Ed Ryan shut his mouth tactfully, without asking too much, followed Colin through the ruins in the hall, and then got into a Rolls-Royce car. Mike drove a Rolls-Royce and drove all the way along the main road of the city. The scenery on both sides also retreated quickly. After a while, he came to a luxurious villa covering an area of over 1,000 square meters. Just as Colin and Ed got off the car, Pepper came out of the villa. Thank God, Mr. Chairman, you finally came, otherwise I really don't know how to deal with your brother. Pepper and Tony came together just like in the original book, and during this decade, the Stark industry could not do without Pepper's care. Colin frowned slightly. He's still developing a new armor in the lab. Pepper smiled wryly. That's right, I haven't closed my eyes for 3 days and 3 nights. It's like a demon. No one can persuade me. You know, sometimes he is as stubborn as a cow. After learning about the situation from Pepper, Colin and Adrian entered the villa and went straight to the second basement floor. After Tony's transformation, it has become a solid and secret laboratory. All you can see are some cool high-tech equipment. Steel armor parts and design drawings are piled up everywhere. There are a dozen of them. As soon as Adrian walked into the laboratory, he was immediately attracted by the scene here, and his face was full of surprise and envy. Rich people are big spenders. Almost all the top-notch scientific research equipment is included here, and everything is what Adrian dreamed of. It is no exaggeration to say that this piece of equipment in the laboratory contains infinite value. Enough to buy any office building in New York. In the laboratory, the holographic image is zooming and modeling, the light is flickering, and there is a sound of arc splashing and knocking from time to time. At the moment Tony is building a brand new Mark 7 armor head around the workbench. Hearing footsteps approaching from far away, Tony turned his head and saw Colin coming. His eyes lit up. Big brother. Tony, it's time for you to stop and take a break. Colin looked intently. Tony had 2 dark circles under his eyes, dry-mouthed lips, and was sluggish. He was a bit haggard after not seeing him for a few days. It seemed that this guy really went crazy for building a battle armor. It has to be said that the Chitauri invasion incident had a great impact on him, which gave him a strong sense of urgency, so that he devoted himself to the upgrade and transformation of the Mark armor day and night. Even whenever Tony eats and sleeps, he will wear the steel armor, inseparable. Big brother, if I were to stop now, I'd be at a loss. Tony rubbed the swollen eyebrows, breathing heavily. He was obviously quite tired, but he still didn't intend to stop. If you want to persuade me to rest like Pepper, then I really can't do it. No, you guessed wrong. I didn't come to dissuade you. On the contrary, I brought you a new breakthrough. If you have been obsessed with the upgrade of the Mark armor, you will inevitably fall into shackles and bottlenecks, so why not take advantage of it? Take this opportunity to change your thinking and study other things that may bring you new inspiration. Colin said in a persuasive manner, and at the same time, under Tony's suspicious eyes, he took out a blueprint from his arms and handed it to the other party. Tony took the drawing, glanced at it, and couldn't help but widen his eyes in surprise. Is this the design drawing of a humanoid weapon? Yeah, you can't hope that every warrior will charge into battle when facing the enemy. This requires some manipulable humanoid weapons to undertake combat tasks. This is the role of Pacifist PX. With an old father-like smile on his face, Colin said earnestly. Having said that, the best way to keep Tony from making troubles is to keep him busy at work. Otherwise, what if one day he has a whim and can't think of messing with the Ultron Legion? Can't let this kid idle. It will only backfire. Just take advantage of this opportunity. Let Tony and Ed Ryan develop the Pacifist PX together. At the moment, Tony was holding the blueprint of Pacifist PX in his hand. His eyes could not help but brighten, revealing a fiery color, as if he had discovered some rare treasure. You know, the last time the Big Brother gave him the blueprint of the spaceship Bribe, it created a new era of light-speed engine technology. And this time the humanoid weapon design is also very technical, and it can be mass-produced, and even a powerful army of humanoid weapons can be formed. Even if the Chitauri star makes a comeback, there is no need to worry about it. Thinking of this, Tony seems to have found his purpose again from his confusion. Tony, let me introduce to you. This is Ed Ryan. He is an expert in the field of electronics and mechanical engineering. I believe that the cooperation between you will produce the same spark. Quote. Ed Ryan, your mission from now on is to cooperate with Tony to develop the Pacifist PX. Yes, with pleasure. After leaving Tony's residence, Colin sat in the car and rushed to another place to choose the site for the new Stark building. With nothing to do along the way, Colin started playing with the Lord of the Mind again. Using the ability of the Mind System, the god's telekinesis psychokinesis extended thousands of miles away with the operation of the Lord of the Mind, meaning that the conditions detected by psychokinesis can be seen at a glance. It came to Colin's mind. Long time no see, friend, it seems that you have realized a new ability. At this moment, a vicissitudes and magnetic voice suddenly sounded in Colin's ear. Colin looked around, no one was talking to him at all. This voice is more like an alien voice conveyed from thousands of miles away, communicating with Colin's the god's telekinesis through telepathy's ability. Thoughts surged in Colin's mind, and soon a person appeared in his mind. Professor X. As an alpha-level mutant, Professor X has the telepathy ability, which allows him to read the thoughts and memories of others without physical contact. At the same time, he can deprive and control the thinking of others and control the actions of others through his ability. And Colin's Lord of the Soul Ring happens to be the function of manipulating the mind and the mind. The similar abilities of the two seem to be in the same radio frequency to communicate. I'm just experimenting with a psychic magic weapon I recently obtained, but I still haven't escaped your discerning eyes. Haha, you know, for a person with disabled legs like me, the only way to stimulate the mind is psychokinesis, but compared with the savior who repelled the alien army by himself, it is not worth mentioning. Quote. 10 years have passed, Professor X is getting older, his eyes are sunken, and there are many wrinkles on his old cheeks, but his voice is as generous and magnetic as ever. Under normal circumstances, I would not shoot casually, but the Avengers are too weak, so I can only do what I can. Is this the result of your practice in that secret realm? Well, by the way, Professor, how are you doing now? Without discussing in depth on this aspect, Colin quickly changed the subject. Now he wants to know more about the situation of Xavier's school, and even the entire mutant group. After all, Colin has just returned, and he still doesn't understand many things. Colin, as you know, I have always had great enthusiasm and hope for the reconciliation between humans and mutant, and I have devoted huge amounts of effort to this over the years. During this period, the relationship between mutant and the human government eased for a time. Dr. Beast McCoy became the director of the Mutant Association and became the first mutant to serve in the United States government. However, this peaceful situation did not last for too long. Not long ago, some high-level officials headed by General Stryker began to publicize the threat theory of mutant. Immediately afterwards, Teslac Industry and the military cooperated in a war and restarted the Sentinel R&D plan, which suddenly caused a rift in the relationship between humans and mutants. After that, Wolverine left Xavier's school without a trace, and Magneto escaped from the Chamber of Secrets with the help of Mystique. Recently, even the spiritual cage imposed on Jean Grey showed signs of loosening, and the Phoenix Force is about to move. As Professor X narrated, his words revealed a bit of vicissitudes and helplessness. What? Magneto has escaped from that secret room at Xavier's school. Colin's expression changed slightly upon hearing this. I thought that keeping Magneto in Xavier's school would be enough, but after all, he was successfully escaped from prison. It is conceivable that he will never let it go. Judging from this situation, mutants' situation is really precarious. They are in a situation of internal and external troubles, and they will also face a series of challenges. Even though he is as powerful as Professor X, he endured huge amounts of pressure and walked silently on the road to protect mutant. At this time, he also confides to Colin the pain that cannot be told in front of Storm and Cyclops. Professor, I believe everything will be fine, don't worry too much. I hope so. No, the Phoenix Force in Chin Gele's body is showing signs of going berserk again. I have to quickly appease the violent and terrifying Phoenix Force, and there will be a period later. Goodbye. Rubbing the ring on his thumb, Colin ended the psychokinesis conversation with Professor X. What I have to say is that the current situation of mutant is really not optimistic. It is foreseeable that in the future, unstoppable conflicts will inevitably erupt between humans and mutant, which may turn into war. What Colin has to do is to maintain the balance of several forces. Otherwise, if the flames of war spread to the entire Blue Star, things will be a big deal. This is a situation that many people don't want to see. However, in Colin's view, there will be a turning point in this turbulent situation. On the roof of the Baxter Building, in the reception room, Colin sat on the sofa in a big way, with his legs crossed, his eyes slightly focused on the calm and honest man opposite him. Reed was looking at the contract in his hand with a tangled face, showing distress. Just now, Colin, the chairman of Stark Industries, brought people here, announced on the spot that he would buy the Baxter building, and at the same time offered a contract that was hard to refuse, which made Reed fall into BFBG entanglement. Reed, you have to think about it carefully. If you don't sign this contract, not only will you be kicked out of the house, but even your experimental equipment will also be removed. How to choose, you should weigh it clearly. Colin looked at Reed with a half-smile, and the other two men and a woman in the room. Mr. Fantastic. Reed. Human Torch. Johnny. The Invisible Woman. Susan. Stone Man. Ben. These four are none other than the Fantastic Four. 3 years ago, 5 astronauts had an accident due to a calculation error during a scientific research mission. The 4 crew members on the spacecraft, plus the captain, were irradiated by unknown cosmic rays. After that, the 5 people all obtained different super abilities. After that, Mr. Fantastic, Human Torch, Invisible Woman and Stone Man formed the hero group Fantastic Four to punish evil and promote good in the Marvel world, while the remaining Doctor Doom Victor became their opponent villain. The reason why Colin came here was also to choose a new building for Stark Industries. Looking at the whole of New York, the Baxter Building is the only building comparable in size to the original Stark Building, so it has become the best choice for the new Stark Building. The Baxter Building has a total of 35 floors, and now Colin has signed contracts with the other 30 floors, leaving only the top 5 floors of the Fantastic Four to complete the acquisition of the entire Baxter Building. Before deciding to buy the building, Colin had already sent someone to investigate the financial situation of the Fantastic Four. At the moment, several research projects of the Fantastic Four went bankrupt. In addition, Johnny used the team's funds to speculate in stocks and lost all his money. The Fantastic Four's finances also experienced huge amounts of crisis. Coupled with the capital operation of Stark Industries, no matter how powerful the Fantastic Four are, they have to succumb. However, Colin didn't do so well, leaving a floor for the Fantastic Four to rent. Okay, I'll sign. After hesitating for a moment, Reed sighed helplessly and had no choice but to sign the contract. Reed, are you crazy, just to sell the house we have worked together for so many years? Johnny grabbed Reed's collar, shouted at him dissatisfiedly. A cluster of flames shot out from his fingers, trying to burn the contract. It's not a good thing you did. If you didn't use the team's funds to speculate in stocks and lose everything, why would we sell these 5 floors? Reed pushed Johnny away with his hands stretched out like rubber bands, and retorted. Seeing that the quarrel between the two became more and more intense, Ben Graham, who was dressed in orange-red rocky skin, stood in front of the two of them like a mountain of meat, preventing them from quarreling. Okay, you all stop for me, or don't blame me for being rude. Following Susan's scolding lightly, the room suddenly fell silent. Susan's pair of water-cut beautiful eyes looked at Colin intentionally or unintentionally, the bright eyes flowed, and the blonde hair shawl was very touching. She was not dissatisfied with Colin's acquisition, but unexpectedly agreed. In the end, Reed signed the contract. Congratulations, you made a wise choice. Colin smiled slightly, then looked at Susan, who had long gold hair and a hot figure, and said playfully. By the way, it's too crowded for 4 people to live on one floor, and I don't mind leaving a separate floor for this beautiful lady. In this way, Colin successfully acquired the Baxter Building. The Baxter Building is one of the landmarks of New York, and this building houses the most advanced technology in the world. It is made of a steel skeleton and is the first building in the world to be supported by a K-shape, which makes the Baxter Building both grand and solid. During the ribbon-cutting ceremony, the original Baxter's name on the building was erased and replaced by the Stark Industry logo, which also means that this place will become the new Stark headquarters. A series of office equipment and facilities in the original company have also been transferred to the new headquarters. In order to make the Stark Industry develop better, not only the hardware such as headquarters must be replaced, but also some efforts must be made on the software. With the development of Stark Industries, it is time to recruit more employees and inject fresh blood into the company. With this in mind, Colin released a recruitment announcement to the outside world on the second day after Stark Building completed the relocation, opening up more than 1,000 jobs. As soon as the news came out, many fresh graduates and unemployed people came here from all over the world to participate in Stark Industries' job fair with great interest. We must know that after the New York War, Colin's reputation has been rising day by day, and Stark's brand effect and influence have also been strengthened. Everyone is proud to be able to work in Stark, and there are many Colin fans among them. On this day, the Stark building was full of people, and the people who came to apply for the job even blocked the corridors. It truly explained what it means to find a job that is hard to find. In order to speed up the efficiency of interview and recruitment, the original one-person interview was changed to two-person interview. In the waiting area, two young people sat on the same bench and waited for the interview to start. One is the lively Jungtai, and the other is the iceberg cold man wearing black sunglasses. Hello, my name is Peter Parker. What's your name? Matt Murdock. Why are you wearing sunglasses? Do you want to highlight your aloof identity? I am a blind man. I'm sorry. It can be seen that you are a person with a strong body and a strong will. Even the injustice of fate can't knock you down. It's really a precious spirit, and it's worth learning. Why do you always look sullen? Smile more. Life is full of sunshine and joy. Why are you unhappy? It's a rare fate that we can participate in Stark's interview together. Let's be friends together. Why don't you talk? Are you nervous about the interview soon? Why are you frowning again now? Life is so beautiful, don't always be sad. In the aisle waiting for the interview, people can see an eloquent lady chatting endlessly with a man in sunglasses. The man in the sunglasses just started to answer, and then he kept silent and straightened his face, frowning frequently as Jungtai chattered, feeling very impatient, and in the end he even had the urge to hit someone. The expression on the face of the man in the sunglasses is unlovable, and the expression on the face of the man in the sunglasses is speechless, as if he is saying hell, mentally retarded. The next two interviewers, please come in. It wasn't until the voice notifying them of the interview came that Peter Parker stopped chattering and walked into the office with Murdock. As soon as he entered the office, Peter Parker saw three interviewers sitting behind their desks. Peter Parker immediately recognized Colin Stark sitting in the middle. He strode forward, shook Colin Stark's hand excitedly and said, "Mr. Colin, my name is Peter Parker, I am your idol. You are my fan. I'm so excited to meet you. I used to see you on TV and speaking engagements, but today I finally met you in real life. Oh my god, this is unbelievable." Seeing this excited incoherent candidate, both Pepper and Mike could see that he must be a big fan of Colin. They have long been used to this kind of scene sitcom, and among the thousands of applicants before this, there are many loyal fans of Colin. The 10 solemn recruitment conditions turned into a fan meeting. Colin glanced at the over-enthusiastic applicant in front of him, and was a little dumbfounded. When his eyes fell on the resumes of the two, his pupils shrank slightly. Peter Parker, Matt Murdock. A Spider-Man, a Daredevil. It turned out that two superheroes came together to apply for the job. Isn't that a coincidence? I am superhero. Coincidentally, me too. But having said that, one of these two people is overly lively like a teenager with ADHD, and the other is mature and steady that doesn't match his age, which is a stark contrast. Colin's gaze wandered past the two of them respectively, and he asked, "What position do you two want to apply for?" Murdock. I had worked as a lawyer for 6 years before, and that law firm closed down not long ago, and this time I came to Stark hoping to apply for a legal consultant. Peter Parker. I don't choose, I can do any job. I mainly want to work during the summer to earn some living expenses, so as not to be accused by Aunt May of being lazy. So that's how it is. Colin nodded when he heard the words, and had some guesses about the reasons why the two came to apply for the job. Murdock has been working as a lawyer in every firm in Hell's Kitchen, but that firm closed down due to poor management. In addition, with Jin Bin's death, the crime rate in Hell's Kitchen has also decreased, which makes Murdock, who has nowhere to display his talents, want to change to a bigger platform to display his abilities. 0. As for Peter Parker, the reasons are even simpler. One is to work part-time during the summer to supplement the family income, and the other is to avoid Aunt May's nagging. That's right, a chatty Spider-Man is also afraid of being nagged by others, and Aunt May is his nemesis. All in all, Peter Parker and Murdock came to Stark with different purposes to apply. Then let's each show off your business level. Colin rubbed his nose and said to the two candidates who were eager to try with a light smile. When talking about his major, Murdock seemed to be a different person, from the original taciturn to eloquent, All kinds of legal regulations and case analysis were in a clear and orderly manner, reflecting excellence capable business level up. Peter Parker, on the other hand, became hesitant, not knowing what to say. After all, he is still a student at school and has no experience. The degree to which it is possible to obtain a job. However, this does not mean that Peter Parker is useless. As a Spider-Man, Peter Parker is quick to respond and agile, and is perfect for some chores, such as cleaning windows on the outer wall of a building, serving tea and water, etc. He is the best at it. Even if he accidentally knocks over the teacup, he can still catch it smoothly. In the end, Colin passed the application of the two, not for anything else, but because he saw the potential of the two of them, and most importantly, having two superheroes with extraordinary skills working for him is really a sense of accomplishment. With the successful conclusion of the job fair, Stark Industries has added thousands of employees. These employees are carefully selected from tens of thousands of recruiters, and all of them are outstanding. At the same time, Stark's team is estimated to be getting deeper and deeper. The scientific research department has two top scientific experts, Tony and Ed Ryan. The legal department has Murdoch to sit in charge. The financial sales department is also managed by Pepper. At the critical moment, Howard, the honorary chairman, also helped to refer. In addition, there is an all-round chore king, Peter Parker, who can clean windows on the wall and serve tea and water. With him, there will be no one to do the chores in the company. At the moment, Stark Industries can be said to be full of talents and elites. Colin is thinking that when Stark no longer needs to worry about 330, he can be a shopkeeper and live a chic and unrestrained life. He is also full of expectations for this. Top floor of the Baxter Building, Supergravity Room. 1262, 1263, 1264. Colin was practicing one-finger Zen push-ups in an environment of 160 times the gravity. Sweat dripped down his cheeks and fell to the floor, and there were traces of sweat soaking everywhere. Because the huge pressure generated by Colin's push-ups caused the ground to crack and shapeshifting, it was as bumpy as the surface of the moon, so the floor tiles and equipment in the supergravity room had to be replaced every once in a while, otherwise it would not be able to withstand Colin's mighty strength crushed. Physical strength represents the lower limit, while soul experience determines the upper limit. For a long time, Colin has never slacked off physical training. Colin is now able to move freely in an environment of 160 times the supergravity. In Dragon Ball, the limit Wukong can withstand is 300 times the gravity, and with the use of Chi, a Super Saiyan can explode a planet. Colin can now reach half the gravity of a Super Saiyan. Although he can't reach the level of Starburst under full power, it is still easy to destroy a large city or even a small country. In fact, Super Saiyans are almost level single universes, they are all existences that can destroy a certain planet. According to this kind of cultivation intensity and the rewards of the system, Colin's advancement to level single universe is just around the corner. Colin couldn't help but think so. After finishing the training, Colin wiped the sweat off his lower body with a towel. Long-term practice has allowed Colin to forge a perfect mermaid line. His body is tall and strong, and his knotted muscles are bulging one by one. He is well proportioned and full of strength. Great visual impact. Gollum. At this moment, there was a slight rustling sound under the bed. Although the sound was very slight, it still did not escape Colin's attention. The pupil on the right shrank slightly, and the Sharingan turned like a bloody windmill, showing a scarlet color. The focused line of sight was locked directly in the corner of the room, and sure enough, I saw a hidden figure hiding under the bed. Colin immediately pulled her out from under the bed. I saw a pretty woman with a delicate face in front of me, with long gold hair hanging over her shoulders, and her hot figure was particularly eye-catching. Because Colin grabbed her, her eyes as bright as blue agate showed panic and embarrassment. Susan, why are you here? Colin let go of the opponent's wrist, and looked at the opponent with scrutiny. I have to say that Susan is really an incredible beauty. It is worth mentioning that the Fantastic Four have just completed their space voyage, and Reed has not had time to confess his love to Susan, so now Susan is still a flower without owner, just like a tempting sweet fruit for others to pick. I want to visit Mr. Colin, and I want to know if you are used to living here. Susan brushed her golden wheat-like hair, and said somewhat falteringly. Oh, the way you came to visit me was by hiding under the bed. It's not polite to hide under the bed and peek at people. Colin frowned slightly, with a wicked smile on the corner of his mouth. Sorry, I'm really too presumptuous. Hearing what Colin said, Susan subconsciously glanced at Colin's tall and straight body with great visual impact, and couldn't help swallowing deeply. A blush crept up her cheeks quietly, and her magnificent chest was also accelerated by her heartbeat. And the violent ups and downs. As Stark's director Zhuang, Colin is handsome, rich and powerful, enough to satisfy any woman's fantasy of a successful man. In front of Colin, there are very few women who can control their inner deer and not rush around impulsively. As a member of the Fantastic Four team with stealth ability, Susan often plays the role of scouting the enemy and inquiring about intelligence in the team. She sneaked into Colin's room this time to inquire about Colin's details, but unexpectedly she was found out, which immediately made Susan feel at a loss. Jondi is extremely. Since you're all here, why not sit down and have a drink? I have a bottle of 82-year-old Lafite right here. Good wine goes with a beautiful woman. Colin was silent for a while, then smiled lightly. Okay, thanks to Mr. Colin then. Susan pursed her lips nodded. Invited by Colin, Susan and Kay Lin Yi sipped the Lafite wine on the coffee table together. The neon lights outside the window are flashing, gorgeous and colorful, reflecting the blurred night, and in the room, an inexplicable emotion gradually pervades. At the same time, a conference call connecting the Hexagon and Tesla's 3.8G industrial sites is quietly underway. How is that plan going? Everything is going according to plan, and Sentinel has completed R&D and started production. Great, as long as the New Mutant Act is passed, these Sentinels will wipe out all the mutants like cleaning up garbage. These cancers shouldn't exist in the world. The Hexagon still needs you to come forward, definitely, and the political donations of those congressmen are also indispensable. Only in this way can the New Mutant Act be passed. Don't worry, I'll take care of all this. This time all mutants will be completely wiped from this planet. The next day, a ray of morning light fell on Colin and Susan's faces. There is a charming atmosphere in the room. Susan stared closely at the handsome man in front of her with a pair of beautiful eyes, recalling the madness of last night. A slight blush rose on her pretty face. I have to leave. It would be bad if I was bumped into by your company's employees. After Susan hurriedly put on her clothes, her body became invisible and quietly slipped away through the crack of the door like an elk. Watching Susan's departure, Colin licked his slightly dry lips, feeling a little unsatisfied. But they all live on the same floor anyway, so there will be plenty of opportunities in the future, and the future will be long. In a quarter of an hour, Colin was sitting at the dining table eating a hearty breakfast brought by the maid, while the news on the TV was scrolling. Yesterday, the Stark job fair in full swing came to an end perfectly. This recruitment will provide job opportunities for more than 1,000 job seekers. According to the research of astrophysicist Jane Foster, the recent astronomical and meteorological observation data of the Earth is somewhat disordered. It seems that a kind of dark matter is being released. After 3 months, there will even be a 9-star astronomical spectacle. Quote. Thanks to the micro-scale cleaning product released on the 15th, the stock price of PIM technology has soared, and the market value has exceeded the $150 billion mark. The mysterious shareholder behind it has made a lot of money. Just now, at the urgently held National Security Conference, more than half of the more than 200 congressmen voted in favor of the New Mutant Act, and the New Mutant Act will be implemented from now on. Colin wiped the food residue from the corner of his mouth with a napkin, and couldn't help staring at the latest news scrolling on the TV. Colin has been following the Mutant Act ever since communicating remotely with Professor X on psychokinesis. Although many peace-loving people tried their best to mediate, but who expected the Congress to pass this bill in the end? The latest bill is not good for mutants. According to the regulations of the new bill, as long as the mutants with the X gene are detected, they will be strictly monitored. Once they have any trespass to the human world, they will be imprisoned. If the situation is urgent, they can even directly erase it. Just as Colin expected, the relationship between humans and mutants is deteriorating, and if this situation continues, it will become more and more serious, and conflicts will break out. And there are 2 main instigators behind this. One is Brian Teslak, the president of Teslak Industries. One is Wilhelm Stryker of the Hexagon. Both of them have a strong hatred for mutant, and they want to deal with it quickly. Because of this common idea, the two colluded together to achieve their ulterior motives. Although Colin has a good relationship with Professor X, he doesn't want to get involved in this muddy water yet, so he's waiting to see what happens, see how things develop next. I don't know how the research on Tony and Ed Ryan's side is going. Colin murmured, and then, he made a tactic with his left hand and drew a circle with his right, and rushed into the flames of the portal. Shua. The next moment, Colin stepped out from the portal and appeared in the Stark military laboratory. Inside the laboratory, researchers in lab coats were busy coming in and out. On the console not far away, Tony and Ed Ryan were discussing something. Seeing Colin's arrival, all the researchers present looked respectful, and Tony and Ed Ryan also stopped talking and greeted Colin. "How's the progress of the research?" Colin asked the two of them. "Big brother, this is what I want to tell you. The pacifist prototype has been developed and will soon enter the testing stage." Tony seemed a little excited and apprehensive, looking like a candidate who was about to face an exam to test his learning results. Accompanied by Tony and Adrian, Colin came to the very center of the laboratory, where a giant figure covered with felt stood. "Mr. Colin, this is the prototype we developed based on the drawings, the Pacifist PX-0. Colin's eyes lit up the moment Edlian lifted the felt cloth. The Pacifist, who is nearly 7 meters tall, has a burly figure and looks like a big mutant black bear. He has piercing tiger eyes and seaweed-like hair hanging over his shoulders. There are cat-like pads in the palm, and the logo of the Gate of Heaven is printed on the armor on his body. From the appearance alone, the pacifist in front of him is almost the same as the Bartholomew Bear himself, both mysterious and deterrent. The burly body, like an iron tower, majestic and quite domineering, can first of all give people the most intuitive deterrent and oppressive effect. This is why the world government uses the tyrant bear as the prototype when developing the pacifist, not the other Shichibukai. Pacifist PX-0, I also made a bold attempt on the original template. While using the titanium alloy endoskeleton, I also wrapped a layer of extremely elastic nanomaterials on the outside, making it firm and resistant to blows. Ability is greatly enhanced. The palm and head can launch laser attacks, and can issue bear-shaped pressure cannons and shockwave. Because it is equipped with the JARVIS artificial intelligence system, it has advanced intelligence and knows how to find the enemy's weaknesses to attack, and it can also be shared with all pacifists. It knows how to cooperate and can form an army to destroy the opponent. Tony introduced the performance of this prototype with eloquence, with a smug smile on his face, as if he was showing a perfect military artwork. It is worth mentioning that Tony did not develop it by copying the blueprints, but by combining his own ideas. While enhancing the individual combat ability, it also has a team cooperative combat mode, which truly interprets what is called a human figure weapon. Tony, your introduction made people excited, but it's a mule or a horse, you have to take it out for a walk to know. Listening to Tony's straightforward introduction, Colin couldn't help joking. Then let's test it. Tony rubbed his hands apprehensively, and was eager to try. 937, then let's try its power first. Colin made a tactic with both hands and summoned the portal. Tony also fired up the prototype. Activate the JARVIS artificial intelligence system. Start scanning the surrounding environment. Load the temperature, humidity, wind direction, heat, radiation detection simulation parameters. Titanium alloy endoskeleton and nanomaterial augmentation, covering the entire body. Enter the battle alert state and start the teamwork sharing mode. The three stepped into the portal, and PX-0 followed closely behind. The next moment, the three of them and a humanoid weapon came to a hill. With a command issued, the eyes of PX-0 flashed with light, the pressure cannon and shockwave in the palm bombarded alternately, and the laser above the head also swept around, just like a war machine crazily destroying and wreaking havoc. With the deafening roar, 1 minute later, the hills within 10 miles of Fangyuan were completely flattened by the fierce offensive, and there was no intact hill or rock. Seeing this situation, Colin nodded in satisfaction. Leaving aside the defensive power, the combat power of PX-0 is almost the same as that of the real Bartholomew Kumamoto. It is definitely a multiplier in power, And where it passes, there will be no grass. Now Colin finally understands the meaning of a pacifist. Only the absolute combat power showing a crushing trend can deter the enemy and create peace. Colin can't help but look forward to it. Pacifist PX, which combines the template of Bartholomew and the speed of light moves of the Yellow Ape, can be said to integrate the advantages of the two into one. On the basis of it, Tony has remodeled it. Whether it is the power of individual soldiers or the ability to cooperate in combat, it has been greatly improved compared to the original, making it a very deterrent humanoid weapon. Shua. The three of Colin and the pacifist PXO passed through the portal and returned to the Stark military laboratory. Pacifist has completed the research and development, and will continue to test, check various parameters, and then make appropriate improvements according to the test results before it can be put into mass production. This may become a weapon that changes the situation of future wars. Following the sound of hurried footsteps, little Pepper came to the laboratory with a dignified expression. Pepper, now you can't wait for another date. Too bad I'm working right now. Tony spread his hands and joked to Pepper. Tony, I'm not in the mood to joke with you right now. Pepper gave Tony an angry look, then turned to Colin and said, Chairman, just now the hexagonal building called and said they would cancel the previous batch. Sidewinder order. Cancel order. Colin couldn't help being slightly taken aback when he heard the words. Tony and Ed Lien beside him also showed astonishment on their faces. You should know that Stark Industries is a long-term arms supplier of the Hexagon, and the cooperation between the two parties has always been very close, and the order will not be cancelled casually. Although the orders for this batch of Sidewinder missiles are not many, only more than 1 billion yuan, the news is too sudden, and there was no warning before. That's right, the answer from the Hexagon is that in order to implement the New Mutant Act, they will purchase 100 Sentinels from Tesla Tech Industries in 1 month, and they have to reduce military expenditures, so they cancelled the order for the Sidewinder missiles. Pepper truthfully replied based on the content of the phone call just now. Sentinel. Colin frowned slightly. The so-called Sentinel is a weapon against mutant invented by Bolivar Trask, the founder of the Trask industry. Sentinel can detect mutants, and has good combat effectiveness. It was born specifically to deal with mutants, and it has become a sharp weapon to implement the Mutant Act recently passed by Congress. Definitely, its cost is also quite high. Plus the profit-seeking Brian Teslak is behind the scenes. The price must be an astronomical figure, otherwise the Hexagon will not reduce other military expenditures. But no matter what the reason is for the Hexagon, they should not unilaterally cancel the order. Since you backtracked and violated the contract first, then don't blame me for being rude. Colin squinted his eyes, revealing a bit of chill. Teslak Industries, the arms company founded by the dwarfs, they want to use the New Mutant Act as an opportunity to sell their Sentinel. It's clear that they want to have a viviparous garden with us. Tony also frowned, and said somewhat angrily. Boss, what should we do next? Ed Ryan asked Colin. It can be said that Ed Lien is very good at technology in the field of electronic engineering, but when it comes to business strategy, it is still up to Colin to make decisions. Constant change, everything is still going according to plan. On the one hand, we will speed up the process of mass production of pacifists from now on. On the other hand, we must definitely work on the way of propaganda. This time we cancel the cooperation with the Hexagon building. Initiate pre-sales worldwide. Colin has a character of vengeance. Since the Hexagon and Teslak dared to play this game, Colin will never let it go. He will use his own method to solve the problem. What? Be cautious about this matter. When Colin said this, Tony, Pepper and Ed Ryan were all puzzled. What puzzled them was, shouldn't measures be taken to stop losses in such a situation, but Colin did the opposite, not only had no idea of stop losses, but also continued to mass produce pacifists, which was a risk also too big. Just do as I tell you. There was an undeniable majesty in Colin's eloquent words. Seeing this situation, Tony and others naturally didn't want to touch Colin's bad luck, and followed his orders honestly. Tony and Adrian continued to perfect the details of the pacifist, striving to start mass production within 2 days. On the other hand, Pepper also went to prepare a promotional video. Next, the two sides went hand in hand. On the one hand, they began to mass-produce the pacifist PX series, and on the other hand, they warmed up for the pacifists. A month passed in a blink of an eye. On this day, in the Hexagon building, the signing ceremony between the United States Department of Defense and Tesla Tech Industries took place as scheduled. With the completion of the signing of the contract between Fred, Minister of Defense, and Brian Tesla, President of Tesla Tech, the first order worth tens of billions was also finalized. I wish us a happy cooperation. Cheers. I believe the dispute between humans and mutants will come to an end soon. At the celebration, Brian and Fred clinked glasses lightly, talking and laughing. Brian's eyes passed through a group of high-level military officers, and he exchanged glances with General Stryker in the crowd. Brian and Stryker. One is a business tycoon, and the other is a senior military officer. It stands to reason that the two people should not have much intersection, but there are two people in different fields, but secretly colluded together for the same ulterior secret. Brian has a sworn feud with Mutant because his father, Bolivar Trask, was assassinated by Mystique. Thanks to the X gene obtained from the captured Mystique, Brian launched an in-depth study on Mutant, and then developed Sentinel specially used to eliminate Mutant. Unlike ordinary businessmen, Brian is very smooth, has a lot of political skills and ambitions, has inextricable connections with the military, and secretly subsidizes many congressmen to protect him. As for Stryker, he also has an unknown past. Stryker had a happy family before, but that happiness was shattered when his son was born and found out to be a mutant. Stryker's son is not only a mutant, but also has a very special ability. He can secrete liquid that controls other people's brains and create illusions, which can drive people crazy. This is how Stryker's wife was driven crazy and then committed suicide. That's why Stryker hates mutants so much. It is worth mentioning that Stryker in his youth once followed Dr. Teslac to eliminate Mutant thousands of times. Since the assassination of Bolivar Trask, Stryker has continued to team up with Brian, both of whom regard the elimination of Mutant as the ultimate goal. It is precisely because of these two people who manipulated behind the scenes that the New Mutant Act and the Sentinel Order were passed. Just when the two were secretly happy, the secretary at the side came to Brian in a panic and whispered a few words, and Brian, who was still immersed in joy, suddenly changed his face. Stark Industries is on the move. When Brian heard the secretary's report, his complexion changed drastically, and the movement of holding the wine glass froze there. The defense minister Fred at the side noticed the clue, and under his questioning, Brian revealed the truth. What? Stark Industries has also developed a special combat robot. Fred was taken aback. As the well-informed Minister of Defense, Fred had heard similar rumors before, but he didn't take it to heart. After all, the Sentinel jewels are ahead, and it would be too risky for Stark Industries to spend huge amounts of financial and manpower to develop special combat robots at this moment, so Fred was more inclined to believe that this was a rumor, and did not pay too much attention to it. Soon, a video was played on the holographic screen hanging in the signing venue. This video was a promotional advertisement placed by Stark Industry on the Yuguan website. The picture that appears in the advertisement is in a fully enclosed area. What came into view were two humanoid weapons that were as strong as iron towers and had no expression. Their numbers were PX-1 and PX-2. And in front of them are 10 Leopard main battle tanks and 10 Apache helicopters, all of them are unmanned combat troops without exception. Both of these represent the top 697 in air combat forces of the MI Army. According to such a large number, they can be regarded as the standard firepower configuration of a regiment of the MI Army. Seeing this situation, Fred and Brian couldn't help but looked at each other. They didn't understand what the stance in the video meant. Boom boom boom. The next moment, with the sharp whistling sound of the propellers and the bang sound of the tank tracks rolling over the ground, 10 Leopard main battle tanks and 10 Apache helicopters surrounded the two humanoid weapons from all directions like a torrent of steel. Launch a fierce attack at the same time, and the battle is about to start. Facing the impact of this torrent of steel, the two humanoid weapons were somewhat helpless. But in a blink of an eye, PX-1 and PX-2 quickly demonstrated the same powerful fighting power as their bodies. Boom boom boom. I saw the PX-1 and PX-2 titanium alloy and nano-material exoskeleton battle armor carrying the artillery fire on the opposite side, raising both palms to aim at the incoming enemy. the pressure cannon and shockwave burst out from the palm, and the laser above the head also turned into the energy-intensive light beams bombarded alternately, respectively breaking out to both sides. Boom! The sky was filled with dazzling flames. Gunpowder smoke filled the air, mud and rocks splashed, and the entire ground trembled violently. PBFBE X1 and PX2 broke out from both sides respectively, pushing out like two killing machines, brutally destroying the main battle tanks and gunships judged to be enemies. With the battle of PX1 and PX2, the main battle tanks on the ground were bombarded into a pile of broken scrap metal, and all the armed helicopters hovering in the sky also crashed, leaving everything in ruins. Under the attack of the two humanoid weapons, the solid armor covering their surface was as thin as a piece of paper, and was easily disintegrated. The terrifying combat effectiveness of the pacifists can also be seen. Hiss. Seeing this scene, the executives of the hexagonal building and Teslac industry in the venue couldn't help but sucked in a breath of cold air, and immediately fell silent. Fred's heart was burning, and his face showed excitement and fanaticism. He couldn't help thinking that it would be great if the Hexagon could purchase this humanoid weapon. In contrast, Sentinel's combat power is obviously not as good as that of the pacifist PX series, and its limitations are too large, so it can only be used to deal with mutant. At this moment, Fred even regretted a little, why was he in a hurry to sign a contract with Teslac? However, the video doesn't end there. Immediately afterwards, in the distant sky, there were dense and small black spots covering the sky. When they got closer, they realized that those were actually hundreds of homing missiles. The countless homing missiles were like birds homing to their nests, targeting the humanoid weapons precisely, as if they wanted to blow them up to nothing. What is surprising is that PX1 and PX2 showed super fast speeds that seriously disproportionate to their huge size. They sprayed out strong propelling flames one from their soles and backs, and flew into the sky in two ways, while the homing missiles are also evenly divided into two batches, following behind PX1 and PX2 like tarsal maggots. I saw two tail flames soaring into the sky. PX1 and PX2 quickly climbed into the sky. The next moment, they suddenly turned to face flight. The distance between the two sides instantly shortened, and they converged in the same direction. At the same time, the Sidewinder missiles behind them are getting closer and closer, trying to devour them. Just when they were about to collide, they twisted huge amounts of mechanical bodies and staggered apart, but the Rattle missiles tracking behind them failed to bypass in time, but intertwined densely. The bang exploded, turned into a sky full of flames and disappeared into the sky. Everyone's eyes widened full of surprise and disbelief. This humanoid weapon not only has powerful individual combat ability, but also has sensitivity and maneuverability, and it can also be shared with each other, cooperate with each other, and cooperate with each other to fight together. The almost unsolvable Rattlesnake missile was resolved without bloodshed. It's really incredible. Are these really two humanoid weapons? And not two Green Titans with loaded firearms? Although this video is a weapon advertisement, there is no nonsense explanation from the beginning to the end, and it is completely interpreting the performance of the pacifist PX in the way of actual combat testing. At the end of the video, a voiceover finally came. A thick and magnetic voice slowly sounded. Stark Industries' newest product, the Pacifist PX series, has started global pre-sale except for the United States Ministry of Defense. Stark Industry, master the core military technology. At this point, this advertisement is completely over. Global pre-sale, except for the United States Ministry of Defense. Shit. This payment is completely aimed at our Hexagon building. What exactly is Colin Stark trying to do? However, the price of this humanoid weapon is definitely high. Who else can absorb this huge order except the hexagonal building? Fred slapped the table hard. His face was cloudy, and there was a glint of sullenness in his eyes. Originally, he was still planning to increase military expenditures and buy some humanoid weapons to expand his armaments, but in this way, his plans came to naught. HMPH, it's ridiculous. When will this Stark industry be reduced to a counterfeit military enterprise like Hammer Military Industry? After recovering from the shock in the picture, Brian smiled coldly and said disapprovingly. In his opinion, the humanoid weapon launched by Stark is nothing more than a desire to run Teslac out of jealousy. You know, Teslac Industries has been researching Sentinels since his father's generation, and it was not until recently that it was finally developed, which took them decades of research and development. On the other hand, Stark Industries has only been developing it for a few months. How could it be successful? This is tantamount to fantasy. This promotional video must be a blockbuster with special effects that Colin asked Hollywood to make, Brian couldn't help thinking. At the same time, among those who watched this promotional video, there were also many netizens who managed the video website, as well as those who came into contact with this promotional video through channels such as TV stations, social software, and advertising curtain walls. After this video was released, it quickly attracted the attention of many people, and its popularity rose steadily, detonating the internet, and quickly boarded the list of hot topics. Not because of anything else, just because this is the latest weapon launched by Stark Industries, and it has a very visually stunning picture. At XXX, look, the promotional video for Stark's new weapon is out. OMG, this clip is so cool, I can't believe it. This time Stark showed his muscles in a special way. He actually directly mobilized gunship helicopters and main battle tanks to test. Could it be that Stark Industries is still a film and television company, and it can actually produce such a cool and gorgeous blockbuster effect, which is not much inferior to Hollywood's? Emoji, praise, praise, praise. I don't know if it's better than Hollywood, but the cost of making such a short film is definitely not small. 10 Apaches, 10 Leopards, plus hundreds of Sidewinder missiles, the cost must be at least $1 billion. My god, it's crazy to spend $1 billion to make a promotional video. It's almost costless to promote a new product. Stark really spent a lot of money to shoot such a short film. What is the concept of 1 billion USD? This is almost catching up with the price of 1 Sentinel. The price of 10 Sentinels is only $100 million US. Who said no? Every frame of this short film is burning money. I have to say that Colin Stark is really rich and willful. How many digits is its selling price? My eyes are dazzled. This humanoid weapon PX is too powerful, give me one too. Come on and wake up the upstairs, do you know how much this thing sells for? The price is close to 2 billion United States dollars. The value of a humanoid weapon is equivalent to a warship, even if it works a few you can't afford it in 1,000 lifetimes. Shiete, Stark Industries must be crazy. The price is 2 billion United States dollars, and sales to the hexagon are prohibited. Who can afford such an astronomical figure? Hey, there are more rich people and invisible rich people in this world than you can imagine. As far as I know, there are many mutants who are invisible rich people. Besides, there are polar bears, Shah, and the Middle East. As for the powerful big countries, they will never miss this opportunity to widen the gap in armaments. It is specifically stated in the promotional video that it will not be sold to the Hexagon building, which clearly shows that it is trying to be tough with the Hexagon building. It's so awesome, even the United States Ministry of Defense dared to criticize. Such a thing is probably only dared to do by Colin Stark. This should be a protest against the Hexagon. Not long ago, there was a conflict between Stark and the Hexagon over a batch of arms orders. It is said that the Hexagon wants to reduce expenditures to purchase Sentinel. Stark on one side, Hexagon and Teslac on the other, what a show. Who would win if you say Pacifist PX and Sentinel are going to fight? One is a humanoid weapon, and the other is a robot designed specifically for mutants. There is no comparison between the two. I guess it must be Sentry. Don't look at the hype in this promotional video, but real combat is completely different. You know, Tesla Tech has spent decades developing Sentinel, and their technology must be more perfect. Quote. I am optimistic about Pacifist PX, after all, you get what you pay for, and since Stark has such a high price, there must be a reason. Let us wait and see. I believe that the two robots will collide soon. We will know who is stronger and who is weaker. Haha, can't wait to see the Pacifist fight the Sentinel. On the internet, tens of thousands of netizens have launched a heated discussion on this video. At the beginning, the focus of everyone's discussion revolved around the cool effect and high cost of this promotional video. Immediately afterwards, everyone's attention slowly shifted to the recent news about the Mutant Act and the purchase of Sentinel by the Hexagon building. In the end, the focus of discussion became the topic of which is more powerful, the Pacifist PX or the Sentinel. And everyone's point of view is also different, and there are different opinions. Some are optimistic about the pacifist PX, some are optimistic about Sentinel, some are bad-mouthing whether the pacifist can be sold at such a high price, and some are looking at Stark and Teslac with the attitude that watching the excitement is not a big deal. The contest between the hexagons. At the same time, SHIELD, Hydra, Osborne Group, Hanmer Military Industry, Xavier's School, Mutant Brotherhood and other forces also used their own means to inquire about this news, among which definitely include some big and invisible countries with strong financial resources who intend to expand their armaments. Regal. A Boeing airliner skimmed low and landed slowly at the Manhattan airport in New York. A tall man with a rough face and a beard was among the dense crowd of people carrying a backpack, and came to the exit to go through the security check. After experiencing the wandering life of the wild cranes, the amnesiac Wolverine Logan returned to New York following the few memories left in her mind. I chose to go through the security check. Quit instrument scan request. When going in and out of some public places, Logan always chooses to search his body and go through the security check, so as to avoid the risk of the wolf claws shrunk on the back of his hand being exposed. Just when Logan was undergoing the security check, he suddenly caught a glimpse of metal keys and coins shaking violently on the salute conveyor belt. At the same time, he perceived a familiar aura approaching, and he felt like he was on his back. Even the warning lights were blinking frequently. Logan's pupils shrank suddenly, he turned his head suddenly, and the bone claws on the back of his hand pierced out instantly, attacking the person behind him. However, at the next moment, Logan was imprisoned by a magnetic force, unable to move. It was Magneto Eric behind him, wearing a black hat and a windbreaker, that caused all this. What do you want to do? Logan said suspiciously. Wolverine, the dark forces are approaching. Humanity has invented a new weapon that can destroy our mutant. What do I want? I want your help. Magneto crossed his fingers on his right hand, while manipulating the power of the magnetic field, he said to Logan earnestly. Why should I trust you? You don't have to trust me. After the voice fell, Magneto's arm dropped down, and at the same time, the magnetic force bound to Logan was removed. Logan looked around, only to find that everyone in the airport was frozen in place, as if the pause button had been pressed. Immediately afterwards, Professor X came to Logan in a wheelchair. Logan, long time no see. How can this be? I told you a long time ago that you are not the only one with super abilities. Professor X's eyes are deep and far away, and a touch of aging and haggard can't help but appear on Shanghai's kind face. With the passage of the New Mutant Act and the purchase of Sentinels by the Hexagon, the relationship between mutant and humans has dropped to a freezing point in an instant, and the two sides are already on the verge of tension. In protest, Beast McCoy resigned from the Mutant Association, and Professor X and Magneto joined forces to deal with the crisis, and they came to Logan hoping to get his help. While the three were talking, the Pacifist PX commercial video that was being played on the airport advertising screen also attracted the attention of Professor X and others. Pacifist PX, this may be a boon for our mutants. Seeing the super combat power displayed by the pacifists in the short film, Professor X's expression suddenly lifted, and he could not help but whisper to himself as the radiant brilliance bloomed in the old eyes like blue lakes. The hustle and bustle of the outside world has nothing to do with Stark, who is now fully committed to the mass production and promotion of the Pacifist PX. Stark Military Production Workshop. Accompanied by Tony and Ed Ryan, Colin is inspecting the production of the Pacifist PX series. In the operating frame of the workshop, titanium alloys are assembled into endoskeletons one by one, and then embedded with various nanomaterials, equipped with JARVIS artificial intelligence system. Under such a process, the prototype of the pacifist was pieced together until it was finally completed, turning into a giant bear as tall as an iron tower standing in the workshop. Ed Ryan, based on the current materials and funds, how many humanoid soldiers can we produce? According to what we have now, we can develop more than 300 units, and the follow-up materials are still in the process of further acquisition. Colin nodded slightly. Since a month ago, Colin ordered Tony and Aridan to lead the workers to build the Pacifist PX series, and even suspended some other projects for this reason. Just yesterday, they placed a large number of advertisements on Yuguan Video, TV stations, and building curtain walls, and opened pre-sales. It cost almost $1 billion USD to shoot that one advertising video. 570. But all of this is worth it, because in less than a day, this promotional video is like a blockbuster thrown into the lake. It completely became popular on the internet, causing an uproar, and the popularity of related topics is rising steadily. It is foreseeable that the sales volume of the Pacifist will definitely not be bad, so Colin asked all the technicians and workers to increase their horsepower to produce the Pacifist PX. There is infinite value behind such a cutting-edge product. The higher the output, the higher the profit. The previous light-speed engine spacecraft could not be mass-produced due to many reasons, but now the conditions for the production of Pacifist PX are more mature. Mass production undoubtedly costs a lot. Fortunately, Stark Industries has a huge amount of cash flow, and the shares of PIM Technology can also be exchanged for a lot of funds. Even if the main production is 100, it is more than enough. An object has been detected moving rapidly towards the military factory. At this moment, there was a rapid alarm sound from the instruments inside the military factory. As Stark's key factory, it is equipped with the most advanced instruments, and the monitoring range covers the area of Fangyuan within 100 miles. Once there is any suspicious object approaching here, a warning will be issued. Seeing this, Tony and Ed Ryan decided to check the situation. Tony pressed the metal bracelet on his wrist, and the red suitcase not far away suddenly disintegrated into many parts, which were assembled on Tony's body in a daze. The golden red armor was very domineering. And the device behind Adrian also stretched out a pair of long silver electromagnetic wings, the anti-gravity motor attached to it suddenly ran, and the mechanical eagle claws popped out from his shoes, which was exactly what he had just built. The Vulture battle suit, aptly named, looks like a menacing vulture. Shua Shua. The next moment, Iron Man and Vulture rushed out of the military factory, and then followed the direction above the alarm to intercept the suspicious object that was moving fast. After a while, the two finally came to the visitor more than 2,000 meters away from the Stark military factory. The opponent was wearing a gray and black steel armor, equipped with a large number of grenade and machine gun weapons on the back. It turned out to be Colonel Rhodes of the War Machine. Seeing this situation, Tony and Ed Ryan looked at each other. Rod, why are you here? Iron Man's steel mask lifted, and Tony frowned. Tony, why, you don't welcome me as an old friend. Don't forget, we used to fight side by side. The War Machine on the opposite side also lifted its steel mask, revealing the face of Colonel Rhodes. He shrugged his shoulders and said to Tony. As a pair of close friends, Tony and Rhodes used to fight side by side. Rhodes is one of Tony's best friends, and the War Machine armor on Rhodes is transformed from the Mark II armor given by Tony. Tony, Rhodes, you should also understand that the current situation is a bit special. Because of the issue of the previous batch of missile orders, Stark Industries and the Hexagon building were already in a stalemate, and because of their position, Tony also deliberately distanced himself from Rhodes. Rhodes, you should know that people from your military are not welcome here now. Following a deep voice, a portal with a flash of flames appeared out of nowhere in the sky, and Colin walked out of the portal, saying this to Rhodes. Mr. Colin, I'm really sorry about the previous order. If this matter makes you dissatisfied, then the Hexagon is willing to buy a new batch of weapons from your company as an apology to compensate for the loss. Rhodes apologized and smiled, trying to easing the tension. The Hexagon has only one request, and that is not to sell Pacifist PX to Mutant. If they get Pacifist PX, they will definitely use it against Sentinel. Compensate for our losses. Do you think this will be able to restore the credibility of the United States Ministry of Defense? Besides, it seems to be my freedom to sell the weapons to someone, right? What power do you have to interfere? Besides, my identity is a businessman, why can't satellite TV do profitable things? Colin twitched the corners of his lips, and said jokingly, making no effort to hide his sarcasm. Isn't the attitude of the Hexagon building very arrogant? Now that the Pacifist PX poses a threat to Sentinel, they know they are wrong. What did they do when they broke their promises? Mr. Colin also hopes that you will think about it carefully. If both parties are in a stalemate, it may not end well. Rhodes said bitterly. TCH, let us wait and see who will suffer the most. Colin narrowed his eyes and smiled coldly. If you are a lobbyist sent by the Hexagon building, Then don't waste your efforts, or I will even dismantle the war machine armor on your body. Seeing that there was no room for negotiation, Rhodes couldn't help sighing, took a deep look at Colin, then turned his head and left. Watching War Machine disappear into a small black dot and disappear at the end of his sight, Tony turned his head and said to Colin with a worried face, "Big brother, do we really want to have a tough hexagon match now? Why? Are you afraid?" "No, but if this situation continues, it will inevitably hurt both sides." "No, to be precise, it will hurt all three. If this continues, our Stark, Teslac, Hexagon, and Mutant will all be affected by huge amounts of impact. It's not all three losers, on the contrary, it's the best thing we do. Isn't it better?" Facing Tony's puzzled eyes, Colin explained to him unhurriedly, "It may be difficult to understand at first, so let me tell you a story. At the end of the Xia Eastern Han Dynasty, the three countries of Wei, Shu and Wu came into being. They attacked each other and fought continuously. However, because of the situation of fighting against each other, the three countries showed a delicate balance, and no one could destroy them. Who, but maintained a state of competition, which made the national strength and people's livelihood of the three kingdoms of Wei, Shu and Wu rapidly improved. Afterwards, Wei state successively destroyed Shu state and Wu state, and unified it into Jin dynasty, but the expected peace and prosperity did not appear, and Jin dynasty declined because of this. A series of chaos, known as the Darkest Dynasty in China. The so-called balanced way is to be able to assess the situation and not let one party be too strong nor one party too weak. Only by skillfully balancing the forces of these three parties can we be profitable and maximize our benefits. Kay Lin said meaningfully, the words reveal a bit of profound philosophy, thought-provoking and enlightening people's minds. Tony lowered his head and pondered for a while, then his eyes suddenly lit up. The Big Brother means that mutants' power is too weak now, and only by giving a helping hand can these three parties return to a balanced state, and we can also benefit from it. Benefit. Your comprehension is not bad, to use an old Chinese saying, even a child can be taught. Colin nodded with a smile. Furthermore, we are also sending a signal to the Hexagon and those congressmen. Even if the military does not purchase our equipment, then we will not lack customers. The big dogs in the Middle East and the huge mutant group are all you can become our client. Especially those mutants. There are many invisible rich people among them. In order to deal with Sentinel, the rich and powerful among them will inevitably purchase pacifist PX to protect themselves. There are many rich and powerful among the huge mutant group. After all, they are born with extraordinary abilities, and there are still many ways to make money. 3.6 For example, Angel in X-Men is a rich second generation, and Stryker's son is also a mutant, not to mention elites like Professor X and Magneto. It can be seen that the proportion of mutants in the total population is still not small, not to mention that there are many mutants hidden in the dark. They are a huge group with great consumption potential. Give it all. Tony couldn't help giving a thumbs up, and looked at Colin with respect and light in his eyes. So that's the case, Big Brother, you are really far-sighted, so everything was already in your expectation. Hearing Colin's inscrutable and philosophical words, Tony couldn't help but feel refreshed and benefited a lot, as if opening a door to a new world. As expected of the boss, not only does he understand astronomy and geography, but he also has insight into the world structure. God and everything, go to hell, from today on, I only believe in the boss. Ed Lien was also very amazed, convinced, shocked by the infinite wisdom of the boss, and instantly turned into Colin's loyal big fan. In Ed Ryan's view, Colin's vision and wisdom are far beyond ordinary people, like a god, which cannot be compared by someone like him who only tinkers with some electronic machinery. The next day, Colin came to the company by car as usual. But as soon as I arrived at the company, I saw many reporters waiting outside the new Stark building. They held microphones and cameras with long guns and short cannons, and blocked the front of the Stark building. Colin got out of the car and was immediately surrounded by reporters swarming in. At the same time, they handed over the interview microphone, and a series of questions followed one after another. Mr. Colin, your company has opened pre-sales to the world, but only excludes the Ministry of Defense of the United States. Is this intentionally targeting the Ministry of Defense and the New Mutant? Quote. What are the advantages of pacifist PX over Sentinel? What do you think about the high level of talk about pacifists and Sentinel lately? I heard that the Ministry of National Defense has negotiated with your company, hoping that your company will not sell new weapons to mutant. What is the result of your communication? Selling the pacifist PX to mutant, isn't it worried that it will cause panic among humans? As the promotional video of the pacifist PX exploded on the internet, the grievances and entanglements between Stark Industry, Teslac Industry, the Hexagon, and Mutant were also widely known. It's even worse. Such explosive news has become the focus of scrambling reports, and these reporters squat here hoping to obtain first-hand information. Facing the long-term interviews of the reporters, Colin said calmly, "I am a businessman, and the goods in this world are sold as soon as they are bought. As long as the weapons are sold within the framework of the law, no matter who the weapons are sold to or not. This is my freedom, and it would be too naive and ridiculous if I still want to kidnap people with this morality. If you have any questions, you can ask the staff of our legal department." With that said, Colin walked into the new Stark building without looking back. As soon as these words came out, the reporters were immediately stunned speechless. Just as they came back to their senses and were about to continue asking questions, 10 men with dark glasses and calm faces blocked the way of these reporters. "I am Matt Murdock, Stark's legal counsel. As our chairman said, it is our freedom to sell weapons to whom, and no one else has the right to interfere." Matt Murdock gave full play to his superb business standards, and replied in an orderly manner. "Moreover, the thing about the previous arms order is that the Hexagon violated the contract first, so we will also fulfill our rights and sue the Hexagon according to the terms of the arms trade and the economic contract law, and we will never tolerate it." There was an uproar again. Walking into the hall, those noisy noises were finally thrown behind Colin's mind, and the world was finally quiet. "Looks like it's time to recruit some strong security guards." Colin picked his ears and said to himself. Having said that, Kaylin has never paid much attention to security issues. After all, as long as you are a person from the United States or from Earth, no one would dare to come here to make trouble, but you can't stand some annoying reporters blocking the door every now and then. In this way, it is imperative to expand the security scale, otherwise, wouldn't any cat or dog be able to break into it? Thoughts surged in his mind. Colin quickly thought of the right candidate, and that candidate is in this new building right now. After making up his mind, Colin immediately walked towards the elevator. Ding! The new Stark building floor 33 has arrived. Since Colin bought the Baxter building, the Fantastic Four lost their top 5 floors, retaining only their lease on the 33rd floor. To be precise, Reed, Johnny, and Ben rented the 33rd floor. As for the top 35th floor, it is the residence of Colin and Susan. As soon as I got out of the elevator, I heard a sound of why-dang bang-dang, rolling the iron. The stone man was moving the barbell, tirelessly exercising his strong body wrapped in a layer of orange-red rock. The Human Torch, Johnny, was lying on the sofa drinking soda, bored, with a decadent look on his face, just like a will-o'-the-wisp boy who had lost his goal. Because of the failure of research projects and stock speculation, the current Fantastic Three are also living in poverty, and they have lost their former glory. Except for Reed, who is still insisting on his research, Johnny and Ben are just like this every day. One is crazy about ironing, the other is doing nothing, can't find the direction and goal of life. If this continues, even life will be a problem. You know, being unemployed in the United States is a terrible thing, superhero also no exception. Yo, you two are really in a good mood. Colin glanced past the two of them, and couldn't help joking. What are you doing here? John looked at Colin warily, and Ben beside him was also a little surprised. You know, although they are on the same floor as Colin, they have little contact with each other, except for the invisible girl Susan. Colin smiled softly. It's nothing, I just came to care about you. Johnny frowned. Are you so kind? Colin said. Although I bought the Baxter building from you, you don't have to be so wary of me. On the contrary, I'm here to provide you with employment opportunities. Oh, there is such a good thing. What is the job 463? Both Johnny and Ben looked suspicious. It's my job to keep the new Stark building safe. You mean the security system here? Colin said with a smile. To be more precise, he is the security guard of Stark Industry. Just kidding, I used to be an aerospace technician at NASA, and I was also the face of the Fantastic Four. Let me be your security guard, don't even think about it. Johnny said unwillingly. Well, it seems that I can only hire someone else. Let's see who is willing to do this job with a monthly salary of 10,000 United States dollars. Colin spread his hands and said, walking towards the elevator with a hint of regret. Hearing this, Johnny and Ben were confused. With a monthly salary of 10,000 United States dollars, when did security guards have such a high salary? As expected of Stark Industries, they are really rich and powerful, and there are many people rushing to do such a job. The two swallowed deeply, touched the change in their pockets that was about to bottom out, and faintly made up their minds. After a while, a spirited guy with blonde hair and a big man wrapped in a thick windbreaker stood in front of the new Stark building, guarding the safety of the building like two statues of the god of door. Who said being a security guard is bad? Well, it smells so good. Human Torch and Stone Man were the security guards of the new Stark building. Afterwards, the outside of the building became much quieter, and the reporters didn't dare to come to crowd it anymore. After all, as the two great powers of the Fantastic Four, Human Torch and Golem are also very powerful. Among other things, just the golem covered with orange rocks and the hideous face standing there is enough to bluff people. However, the enthusiasm for Pacifist PX has not diminished in the slightest. Whether it is the people who eat melons or all forces, they are all eagerly watching the results of the pre-sale of Pacifist PX. As time passed, the 10-day pre-sale period for humanoid weapons also ended. In the middle of the night, Colin, Tony, Ed Ryan, Pepper, Murdoch, Peter Parker and others all gathered in front of a super quantum computer in the sales department. At the moment, Tony had already boarded the backstage of Stark's official website, waiting with bated breath for the results with everyone. When the time at the bottom right of the computer jumps from 23:59 to 0:00. The next moment, Tony took a deep breath and refreshed the page after a moment of hesitation. The pre-sale volume displayed on the background of the official website was finally fixed. 516. Oh my god, I'm not mistaken, just for the pre-sale, 516 units have been sold. Haha, I don't know what kind of reaction Hexagon and Teslac Industries will have after getting this news. Seeing this situation, everyone's hearts were beating wildly, they were full of surprises, and they were full of disbelief. You know, as a high-end humanoid weapon, the price of Pacifist PX is $1.95 billion, which is nearly $2 billion. 516's pre-sale results, which means that the turnover has successfully exceeded $1 trillion. After excluding costs, the profit can reach as much as $300 billion, and there will be an increase in follow-up orders. Moreover, this pre-sale result directly surpassed all the orders of the hexagonal building for purchasing Sentinel, which was 5 times as much as it, and the sales volume was far ahead, and the latter could only be held up. In terms of sales volume, the Pacifist PX series surpassed Sentinel by an overwhelming advantage, thanks to the wedding dresses made by Teslac Industries and Hexagon. It all depends on the foil of the peers. Colin rubbed his nose, and a faint smile formed on the corner of his mouth. He was not surprised by the pre-sale results presented. Even if it is a sky-high price, it still cannot stop those big military powers and invisible rich people from flocking to buy it. In addition, there is a group of consumer groups that cannot be ignored, that is, the huge mutant group. With the prelude to the New Mutant Act and Sentinel, the relationship between human beings and mutants has also dropped to a freezing point, and it is no exaggeration to describe it as tense. Under such circumstances, Mutant is also eager to find a reliable force to protect himself, and the Pacifist PX has become a suitable choice. You must know that the Pacifist PX is a humanoid weapon that combines the Bartholomew Bear, the Yellow Ape's moves, and the Advanced Artificial Intelligence System integrate, and its parameters are better than Sentinel. In contrast, the function of Sentinel is much thinner. It was developed to detect and attack mutants. However, if it fights with the Pacifist PX, its feature has no room to play, and it is useless. Moreover, the Pacifist PX has powerful attack power, and the pads in the palm can play the role of defense and protection, both offensive and defensive, and even able to gather and coordinate operations, which is tailor-made for mutant. Combining these factors, Pacifist PX is favored by Mutant. It can be said that more than half of the pre-orders for 516 come from mutant groups with strong financial resources. Many mutants are invisible, rich and powerful. For example, Angel in X-Men is a rich second generation. General Stryker's son and even his dead women are all mutants. It can be seen that the proportion of mutants to the total population is not small, not to mention that there are many mutants hidden in the dark. They are a huge group with great consumption potential. To give the simplest example, that is Professor X. He has the ability of telepathy and mind control. If he wants to earn ill-gotten gains, he only needs a random thought to make countless pressures on his bank account. Although Professor X is a very self-disciplined and very upright person, there is no guarantee that he will use some special methods under the current situation of intensified conflicts. There are many mutants similar to ability in the world. Among them there are many invisible rich people. The sum is incalculable, the wealth is incomparable. Even if you buy Pacifist PX in large quantities, it is no problem. It is worth mentioning that, in order to prevent someone from using the Pacifist PX to realize some ulterior conspiracy, these humanoid weapons were set with an unchangeable instruction when they were manufactured, that is, they must not attack and slaughter without reason. So they tend to be more defensive and counterattack mode, so that there is no need to worry about some crazy people using it to destroy the world. Tony, Ed Ryan, continue to let the military factory work overtime for production. We must complete these orders as soon as possible. If necessary, we can also add workshops and workbenches. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, Colin spoke to Tony and Ed Ryan. I'll be busy next time. Tony couldn't help showing a wry smile. But at the same time he was full of energy. After all, who would have trouble with money? With the announcement of the turnover of the Pacifist PX, there was an uproar in the United States and even the entire Marvel world, and many people who had previously bad-mouthed Stark were severely beaten in the face. This includes the president of Teslac Industries, Brian Teslac. Who can tell me why Stark's humanoid weapons are not only half as expensive as ours, but also sell 5 times as much as ours? Brian, who got the latest news, smashed wildly in the office. His face was full of anger, his chest heaved sharply because of jealousy and anger, and even his face was completely distorted. Seeing this, the project leaders below were all silent, full of helplessness and grievances. Who knows how the sales of the Pacifist PX have suddenly sprung up? Without the purchase of the Hexagon, its sales should not be very bleak, but why did the pre-sale break through $1 trillion, and most of the buyers were from Mutant? It's simply puzzling. Could it be that the way they opened the script is wrong? In any case, the high sales volume of Pacifist PX has become a foregone conclusion, and the only way now is to persuade the Hexagon to continue to place orders for Sentinel. At this time, Brian's first reaction was to call Stryker. As an anti-mutant ally, Stryker would definitely not sit idly by. Quote. Stryker, now you're going to help get the Hexagon to keep ordering the Sentinel. Quote. Still ordering. Don't you think the Sentinel isn't broken enough? Look at what you've done. However, as soon as the phone on the other side was connected, there was a scolding voice immediately, which made Stryker's heart thump, and suddenly had an ominous premonition. What do you mean by that? What do you mean? Check it out online. After hanging up the phone, Brian immediately opened the YouTube website. Soon, a series of videos of Pacifist PX fighting Sentinel came into view, some of which came from surveillance, and some were unintentionally shot by passers-by, with different perspectives and environments. Brian clicked on a video casually. In the video, a Sentinel was ordered to go to a certain mansion to hunt down a mutant. However, he was easily defeated by the Pacifist PX from inside the mansion before even seeing the mutant's face. For a pile of scrap iron. In other videos, the results of the confrontation between the two sides are all Sentinel's fiasco and being beaten to pieces. What's more, when the Sentinel broke into the mutant gathering area, a dozen or so Pacifist PXs gathered and besieged, and the result was so sour. Facts have proved that Sentinel is a waste, easily beaten by pacifists, vulnerable. Mutants rise because of the protection of humanoid weapons. In terms of research and development level, Teslac is 100 times worse than Stark by Hanmer Military Industry. The Hexagon has been severely slapped in the face this time, and the new Mutant Act just passed is useless. The barrage and comments of netizens on the video are also overwhelming. Seeing this series of videos, Brian Teslak's eyes were distracted, he was terrified, and he sat down on the ground with a dead face. Judging from a series of records, Pacifist PX has completely defeated Sentinel. Pacifists have both offensive and defensive capabilities, and are stronger than Sentinel in terms of strength, speed, and maneuverability, not to mention the assembled and coordinated combat mode. In contrast, Sentinel's combat advantage against Mutant could not be brought into play at all, and the result was self-evident. In just over 10 days, the 100 Sentinels dispatched by the Hexagon to carry out missions, except for 2 lucky ones with more victories and fewer victories, all of them suffered disastrous defeats, 43 were destroyed, 48 were scrapped, only 9 Sentinels are still intact. This mechanical confrontation discredited Hexagon and Teslak Industries and suffered heavy losses. It was even ridiculed by netizens in the United States. Many people began to question whether Hexagon and SHIELD had enough ability to maintain the situation. For a while, protests continued on the streets of the United States with large file sizes and small file sizes. The people accused the Hexagon of violating the contract and reneging on promises. A world of peace. This made the Hexagon under the pressure of fishing boats, and it was shrouded in the shadow of frustration and defeat from top to bottom. On this day, a convoy of 9 cars galloped all the way from the Washington Hexagon to New York, and all of these cars hung military plates without exception. The mighty convoy entered Manhattan, New York, and drove straight to the new Stark Building, a surface building in New York. Sitting in the bulletproof car, Fred, the Minister of National Defense, saw the towering K-shaped new Stark Building from a distance, which is magnificent. If you look carefully, you can still find a small black dot moving rapidly on the 30-story building. Who can tell me, what is that little black spot like a bug? It looked like a man. He seemed to be cleaning windows. A person without any protective measures, lying on the outer wall of a 30-story building and cleaning the windows. Yes, Mr. Chong, you are not mistaken. Fred couldn't believe his eyes, a window cleaner from Stark Industries is so capable. A convoy passed through the busy main road and arrived at the downstairs of the new Stark Building. Several high-ranking military officials got off the car, including Minister of Defense General Fred Wilhelm Stryker and his subordinate Yuriko Koyama and others. They are the military negotiating team ordered by the president to negotiate with Stark in order to ease the crisis caused by the pacifist PX and mutant incidents and seek a solution. Fred raised his head and glanced at the towering building in front of him, with a complicated look on his face. In order to quell the pacifist PX incident as soon as possible, Fred had no choice but to visit Stark Industry in person to plead for negotiations, no longer the proud attitude of the past. When Fred led the people to the company lobby, he was stopped by 2 security guards, one tall and one strong, and was required to undergo a security check and body search. We belong to the Hexagon Building, so we should be able to avoid this process. Koyama Yuriko showed the tall security guard her ID. I don't care if you're from the Hexagon or the Seventagon. All non-corporate personnel who come to the Stark Building are subject to security checks and body searches. The tall security guard said impatiently. That's right, you have to follow the rules when you come here. Another Tiano security guard with a hulking back and a cracked rock pattern on his face echoed. Presumptuous, to be so rude, simply don't take our military side seriously. Stryker frowned, and scolded with a dark face. Wherever they usually go in the hexagonal building, they are not unhindered. How could they have been treated like this? Oh. If you are not convinced, you can try it. Johnny spread out his palms as he spoke, and in the next moment, a raging flame rose from his palms, a heat wave swept across, and the surrounding temperature also rose suddenly. At the same time, Ben on the side also shook his arms, revealing a sturdy body covered with orange rocks, and let out a low growl brazenly. Fred and the others were startled, full of disbelief. Human Torch, Stone Man. They used to be the all-people heroes of the United States, but now they are willing to be the security guards of the new Stark Building. Stark's background is too deep, and any doorkeeper is a superhero. Under the friendly statement of Thunderbolt and the Stone Man, they had to accept the security check honestly. 34th floor, reception room. So it's Minister Fred and General Stryker from the Hexagon, your complexions don't look very good. Colin sat on the sofa in a dainty manner, watching Fred, Stryker and the others look ashamed, and smiled playfully. Fred had a bitter look on his face. As the Minister of the National Defense, he had to put on some airs when he came out to negotiate, but he didn't expect to be dismissed before entering the building. This made Fred's majesty and aura that he tried to maintain immediately reduced by half. Like a rooster that has lost a fight. It's nothing, let's get straight to the point. Mr. Colin must know why we are here. We did make a mistake first, as a way to show that the Ministry of National Defense is willing to apologize publicly and compensate your company for all losses. We also hope that we can continue to cooperate. Fred smiled apologetically at Colin in a soft tone. Tisk tisk, you didn't have this attitude when you cancelled the weapon order. Did you suddenly figure it out? Colin twitched the corners of his lips with a playful face, making no effort to hide his sarcasm. Mr. Colin probably doesn't want the situation between humans and mutants to get serious, so why don't we take a step back from each other? Then let me see your sincerity, otherwise don't waste your words. We would like to order 260 pacifist PXs from your company, and as an expression, we are willing to pay $50 million more than the original price. Fred did not return to his previous haughty posture, and spoke in a very tactful tone, even in a pleading tone. Well, that sounds like a good proposition. Colin's fingers tapped rhythmically on the armrest, and then the subject changed, and the old god said. However, the specific rules have to be changed. We can only sell you 200 pacifist PXs, but the price of each one will be $1 billion more than the original price, which is $3 billion. 200 units, each priced at $3 billion, is an acceptable range. It can not only balance the forces between humans and mutants, but also make the situation controllable. At the same time, it can also make Starks maximize the benefits. Hearing Colin's words, the people in the United States military negotiation team all looked at each other in blank dismay, with embarrassment on their faces. The original price of $2 billion was suddenly raised to $3 billion. This is simply asking for a price. The lion opened his mouth. Enough is enough, you, don't go too far. Wilhelm. Stryker jumped at the table, and Bo Rand said angrily. A strange look also flashed in the eyes of the dead girl Yuriko Koyama behind him. I can't accept such a small condition. If this is the case, then let's avoid it. Anyway, my pacifist PX will never lack customers. If you have one more, you will not be too many, and if you are missing, you will not be less. If you don't buy it, get out. Colin smiled coldly, and said unscrupulously, there was no lack of sarcasm in his words. He definitely knew why Wilhelm Stryker made such a big fuss. You must know that Stryker and Brian were behind the scenes, whether it was the New Mutant Act or the Sentinel Order. However, the birth of the pacifist PX completely ruined their plot. Not only did they fail to eliminate Mutant, but they also caused extremely heavy losses. At this time, Colin also took the opportunity to ask for prices and amass a lot of money. How could Stryker not be frustrated? But having said that, regarding this arms trade, it is not a question of whether the Hexagon wants to buy it, but whether Stark is willing to sell it. With the exposure and continued popularity of pacifist PX and Sentinel, there must be many wait-and-seers who will start orders, so Colin has no shortage of customers at all. Stryker, shut up. Fred immediately panicked. This time he finally knocked on the door of negotiation, and he must not give up all previous efforts. He gave Stryker a hard look, and immediately said to Colin with a pleasant face. Mr. Colin, there should be room for negotiation on this matter. 200 orders are acceptable, but isn't the price of 3 billion yuan too high? It has already greatly exceeded our military budget. Fred was very depressed. A series of arms purchases has already made the Ministry of Defense a bit stretched, and another huge expenditure of $600 billion will undoubtedly make the situation worse. Even if all the financial strength of the United States is gathered, it will be unbearable. That's not something I should worry about. Colin spread his shoulders and fiddled with the magic ring on the ring, looking disapproving. At this moment, the familiar electronic voice came to his ears again. The dispute between humans and mutants is a conspiracy planned by humans. Faced with this situation, please make your choice. 17. Option 1. Expose the conspiracy of Stryker and Brian. The task is completed, and the reward is a random golden holy cloth from the world of Saint Seiya. Option 2. Skip this matter as if nothing had happened. The task is completed, and the reward technology prop any door from Doraemon world. The unexpected system prompt sounded in his ears, which made Colin's mind move. Colin's attention was quickly focused on these two option rewards. Any door is a technological prop in Doraemon. Its function is similar to that of a portal. As long as you open the door, you can reach your destination. At the same time, there are times in the movie to adjust the time by turning the scale on the door handle, but in the premise of traversing is that the geographic data of the area is input into the computer. Colin has already practiced Visandi magic from Kamar Taj, and he can drive the portal at will. At this time, it doesn't make much sense to choose any door, not to mention that there are many restrictions on this door. As for the Saint Cloth in the world of Saint Seiya, it has a lot of background. The Saint Cloth is an artifact with the protection of the goddess Athena, and it is an armor worn by the Saint Seiya. According to the level of the saint, it is divided into 3 types: gold, silver, and bronze. The higher the level, the higher the performance. And the golden holy clothes are the strongest battle clothes worn by the 12 golden saints at the top of the 88 constellations, the 13 if you add Ophiuchus. The battle suit worn by the golden saint at the top of the 88 constellations is the armor of light, which shines brightly at any time. Of the light, there are 12 pieces in all. Corresponding to 12 golden constellations: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. The hardness and defensive power of the battle suit that has never been destroyed since the age of mythology can be imagined. The shining light emitted by the golden holy cloth is not only because of the original material of the holy cloth, but also because the golden holy cloth originally has the function of absorbing light, which can convert the light shining on it into energy. As for the energy stored in the golden holy clothes, when the 12 golden holy clothes are concentrated to emit energy, the energy generated is enough to rival the sun and even the entire Milky Way. This shows how powerful the golden holy clothes are stored. Energy of 0. Not only that, but the golden holy clothes also store the memories and souls of the previous generation of saints. After bathing in the blood of Athena, they fully burn the infinite size of the small universe the 8 senses can awakening as a god. Exclamation mark. Looking at the 2 rewards of any door and a random piece of golden holy cloth, Colin quickly made a decision. There was silence in the reception room. Just when the negotiations were deadlocked, Colin took the lead to break the silence, and he said to Fred meaningfully, "Fred, let's not mention this arms trade for now. Let's talk about this New Mutant Act and Sentinel. Don't you find it strange that these 2 incidents followed each other?" As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere at the scene suddenly froze. Especially Stryker and the dead girl Koyama Yuriko had weird expressions on their faces. Now it seems that this is indeed a bit strange. Fred was slightly taken aback when he heard the words, but after he thought about it carefully, he nodded his head irrefutably. Now it seems that these 2 things are closely related one after the other, and everything seems to be arranged. It seems that there is a hidden force that is fueling the flames. With his keen intuition, Fred also realized that this matter is not easy. You mean, this is the result of a secret push by someone behind the scenes? It's definitely. But who on earth has such great energy? It's very simple. Through the New Mutant Act and the Sentinel incident, whoever gains the most is the mastermind behind the scenes. One is Brian Teslak, the president of Teslak Industries, and the other is far away and close at hand, Wilhelm Stryker. Colin pointed to Wilhelm Stryker, who was sitting across from him, loudly. "Colin, I have endured you for a long time. You don't want to spout blood. What evidence do you have?" A look of panic flashed in Stryker's eyes, and he said with a dark face, "You want proof? It's easy." Colin's voice fell, his figure flashed without warning, and, 087, disappeared on the sofa out of thin air. The next moment, Colin appeared out of thin air behind Yuriko Koyama, a chilling murderous intent spread out, and the temperature in the reception room also dropped suddenly, giving people a feeling of falling into an ice cave. Koyama Yuriko was startled, like a light on her back, as if she was being targeted by a terrible poisonous snake. The next moment, a stern look flashed in her eyes, she turned around suddenly, and the long sharp claws embedded in her fingers suddenly pierced out from her fingertips. Amidst the ear-piercing whistling sound, Yuriko Koyama flashed her cold and sharp cat claws, and stabbed at Colin's face swiftly and fiercely. However, under the amazed gazes of the people, Colin stretched out his right hand lightly, and immediately encircled the sharp claws of Yuriko Koyama. A cloud of silvery black shattered powder floated in the air. Immediately afterwards, before Koyama Yuriko could react from the severe pain, she was grabbed by Colin's other hand and thrown out heavily, hitting the wall and raising smoke and dust. The next moment, Colin turned into an afterimage and returned to the sofa in a flash. It took less than 2 seconds from appearing behind Yuriko Koyama to defeating her. Hiss. The sound of gasping for air could not help but be heard one after another in the reception room. Everyone swallowed deeply, their eyes full of fear and shock. Suppressing the fear in his heart, Fred couldn't help frowning. "Mr. Colin, what do you mean?" Colin stretched out his hand and pointed to the direction where Yuriko Koyama fell. "You will know if you continue to read." As soon as these words came out, everyone followed the direction Colin was pointing at, and looked at Yuriko Koyama, who was seriously injured and fell to the ground. After the smoke dissipated, I saw that Yuriko Koyama's body was already covered with cuts and bruises, especially on her fingers. There was blood bubbling out, the flesh and blood were blurred, and bones of the bones could be faintly seen. Strangely, in the next moment, these wounds began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. As you can see, this Yuriko Koyama is a mutant with self-healing ability. Similar self-healing ability and adamantium cat claw. This is the female version of Wolverine. As a personal bodyguard, how could Stryker not know her? It's mutant. There is only one explanation, that is, Stryker and Teslac Industries are jointly conducting mutant experiments, and even transforming their own men into mutants for their own use. Using mutants to deal with mutants is really a vicious strategy. Colin stared at Stryker coldly with eagle-like eyes, and said with a half-smile. Just let SHIELD and CIA do a good job of investigating the connection between Stryker and Teslac Industries and everything will come to light. When Colin exposed his conspiracy, Stryker's face was cloudy, trembling like a sieve, and he tried his best to defend himself. But no matter how he defended, he was greeted with disgust and contempt from Fred and other senior military officials. Seeing this situation, Colin smiled lightly and turned his head to Murdoch, the company's legal counsel, and asked, "Murdoch, how should we punish this matter?" Murdoch pushed the black sunglasses with his fingertips and replied, "According to the new Mutant Act, no one is allowed to help or even cover up mutant. Stryker, as a military personnel, knowingly breaks the law, and that is an even worse crime, and the Hexagon building is also a crime. Be responsible for this. According to the new Mutant Act, Stryker will face a life sentence, which can be said to be shooting himself in the foot. Stryker, you are really disappointing. I will definitely investigate this matter carefully. If the final situation is true, you will spend the rest of your life in a military prison forever." Fred reprimanded Stryker sternly. Stryker's expression was dull, as if mourning, and he collapsed powerlessly. He knew that everything was over. Following Fred's order, Stryker and Koyama Yuriko were both taken away for investigation. Looking at the dejected backs of the two being escorted away, Colin turned his head and looked at Fred with a smile. "Minister, you should know what the consequences will be if this matter is spread." "So how exactly?" "So, you can figure it out for yourself." Fred fell silent. As Colin said, if this incident is revealed, the Hexagon building will become a place of filth in people's eyes, its majesty will be swept away, and even its reputation will be ruined, which will bring huge amounts of blows to the image and reputation of the Hexagon building. Okay, everything will go according to the plan you proposed. After pondering for a while, Fred gritted his teeth and said with a pained expression on his face. Seeing that Colin's attitude is so tough, he seized the handle of this matter, and decided to accept the appearance of the Hexagon building. Coupled with the huge pressure brought by the pacifist PX 3.4 incident, Fred had no choice but to compromise. Now it seems that the pacifist PX has to be bought even if it is to sell iron, otherwise I really don't know what these mutants will be used for and how things will evolve. Okay, I wish us a happy cooperation. You also know that it is extremely difficult to make pacifist PX, and we have to do it as a last resort. After signing the contract, Colin and Fred clinked glasses of wine and said. Hearing Colin's words, Fred wanted to cry, almost vomited blood from his mouth. Shameless. This is a big bargain and still acting like a good boy. But at this moment, because of Colin's restraint, Fred and even the entire Hexagon building can only grit their teeth and swallow all the grievances and helplessness in their stomachs. In this negotiation, the Hexagon finally made a compromise. Signed an order with Stark Industries to order 200 Pacifist PX, each priced at nearly $3 billion. The turnover of this transaction alone is close to $60 million, plus the previous pre-sale, the combined total exceeds $160 million, astonishing turnover. With the release of this heavy news, it was no surprise that it once again caused a sensation from the outside world, which shocked the internet, and the major forces and organizations were also stunned. The majestic Hexagon actually made concessions to a company. It is simply unprecedented. As everyone knows, in order to order this batch of pacifist PXs, Baigong and Hexagon spent all their money and resources, even at the risk of financial losses. Because of the completion of this transaction, the dispute between humans and mutant has gradually eased and become clearer. It is estimated that the human forces headed by the Hexagon have 200 pacifist PXs, while the relatively weak mutant has less than 300. The combat power of the two sides has reached a delicate balance. At least for now, no one can do anything to the other. Meanwhile, Stark emerged as the real winner in the dispute. Thanks to the hot performance of the pacifist PX in the arms trade market, Stark's market value has soared all the way, reaching $2 trillion, surpassing Hanmer Military Industry and Teslac Industries in one fell swoop, and now Stark's market value is Hanmer Military Industries twice. Even with the Osborne Group and Roxxon Petroleum Company in front, it is not much inferior. Osborne Group and Roxxon Petroleum Company, you must know that one of these two is a super consortium and the other is a profitable oil company. Their wealth is accumulated by time and countless capitalists. However, less than a year after Colin's return, he has promoted the strong rise of Stark 15, and even rivaled the super consortium. This kind of development momentum is amazing. And according to the development of this trend, it is only a matter of time to surpass these two super giants. On the other hand, the CIA also launched an investigation to verify all the crimes of Stryker and Bryan. Both of them were imprisoned. The impact is reduced to the minimum, so there is no publicity. Now, the conspiracy of Stryker and Bryan has been exposed, and both of them have been imprisoned for this. Colin reckoned that the task was completed, and now Colin is thinking about the task reward. Just as he was thinking, a system notification sounded at the right time. The host has completed the task. Congratulations to the host for getting the reward. A set of random golden holy clothes. A gold saint cloth chest appeared out of thin air in the system interface. There are three types of holy clothes: gold, silver, and bronze. The higher the level, the higher the performance. As the core power to protect Athena, the battlesuit of the Golden Saint Seiya is even higher than bronze and silver, and the concentrated energy is enough to rival the sun and even the entire galaxy. Which set of golden holy clothes will it be? Looking at the Golden Saint cloth box, Colin couldn't help murmuring, with a touch of excitement and anticipation in his words. The 12 sets of gold holy clothes are Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. Different saint clothes correspond to different constellation saint fighters and their inheritance of combat methods. Driven by curiosity, Colin reached out and touched the holy cloth box. The next moment, the holy cloth box exuded a bright gold light, which was extremely dazzling, and the golden holy cloth inside also caught Colin's eyes. Roar. I saw that this is a gold lion, fierce and domineering, majestic, sharp fangs are exposed in the open mouth. The golden lion's powerful limbs are lying on the ground, and its burly body is slightly arched, ready to go, as if it is about to jump through the air at any time, roaring between the sky and the earth. It's the Leo Golden Saint cloth. Colin's eyes lit up, with an excited smile on his face. He reached out and caressed the holy garment, and a thick and sharp texture immediately spread to Colin's fingertips through the surface of the holy garment. Looking at the Leo Gold Saint cloth in front of him, the figure of Leo Gold Saint Iolia immediately appeared in Colin's mind. Aeolia is the human body chosen by Zeus, the king of gods. It guards the fifth house of the zodiac, the Lion Palace. The fighting method is skill, and its boxing skills are like the fangs of a lion, fierce and domineering, fierce and fierce. In terms of melee combat skills among the 12 Golden Saints, no one would dare to be the number one if Aeolia ranked second. He beat Shaka in the Pope's Hall, and killed 5 ghosts with one punch in the Battle of the Underworld. Fighter. And the reason why Aeolia can have such a tyrannical strength, to a large extent, is derived from the power emperor of the Saint Cloth of Leo. Colin thought for a moment. The next moment, the golden lion immediately disintegrated into many scattered parts and flew over, flying and circling around Colin's head, and then dazzledly pieced together on Colin's body. At the same time, the inheritance of Aeolia's tactics also disappeared into Colin's eyebrows in a flash. Because of the systematic blessing, even if Colin is not Athena's holy warrior, he can still wear the golden holy cloth. Colin, who is wearing the Leo golden holy clothes, is shining with golden light in his battle armor, majestic, with endless divine brilliance flowing. As the armor of light, the golden holy clothes can absorb the sun's rays and convert them into energy. A ray of sunlight sinking into the golden holy clothes is like a golden sun hanging high in the sky, emitting a vast and majestic light. Cosmic powers. What's even more peculiar is that Colin can even resonate with the distant Leo of the zodiac under the immersion of his mind. A boundless cosmic spiritual energy filled the whole body, and he could clearly sense the beating pulse of the vast stars with every breath. Colin is very excited. He has obtained the inheritance of Aeolia's tactics at this moment, and this set of golden holy clothes also contains infinite potential. This golden holy cloth awakening into a holy cloth, how powerful it will be. Colin is full of anticipation, can't wait to kill a cosmic god now, and come to awakening a more powerful sacred clothes. Just when Colin started endless daydreams, a knock on the door interrupted Colin's thoughts. After an iris scan in front of the door, it was revealed that the visitor was none other than Tony Stark. Please come in. Tony came in from the door, and when he saw Colin's holy garment shining with golden light, he couldn't help being surprised. The light of gold almost blinded his titanium alloy dog eyes. Big brother, when did you get a set of battle armor? Tony looked around the set of golden holy clothes, looked left and right, just like a curious baby. What commands do I need to enter to activate this armor? Facing Tony's question, Colin smiled lightly and shook his head. No, this is my exclusive armor, and no one can crack it except me. Tony said disapprovingly, I still don't believe it. Soon, Tony brought a lot of professional instruments and equipment. An hour later, Tony squatted on the ground exhausted, and finally gave up on cracking this set of golden holy clothes. This set of battle armor is like a holy garment that only appears in mythology, and its principle cannot be analyzed at all. Tony looked at this set of shining and cool armor with a look of envy on his face. In comparison, his Mark series armor Shenron was not good. Tony, you know, not everything in the world can be explained by science. Colin smiled mysteriously, and then under Tony's astonishing gaze, he stored the holy cloth in the Nightcaller, one of the 10 Lord of the Rings. The ring of the Nightcaller can create a dark area alone for storage. As long as Colin moves his mind, he can store or release any object, including Agamotto's spear and Leo's golden cloth. Putting away the golden holy garment, Colin turned to look at Tony. By the way, let's get down to business, what do you want me to do? Tony recovered from his surprise and said to Colin, Big brother, I don't know if you have noticed that there are many abnormal gravity phenomena recently. Anomaly in gravity. That's right, the situation of 680 has happened in many regions of the Earth. The gravity becomes high and low, the light is flickering and dimming, and the space is also squeezed. According to the data I obtained from observations, this phenomenon occurs in London. The edge is very obvious. As a world-renowned scientist, Tony also often communicates with other scientists and scholars. Once he accidentally talked about this matter with an astrophysicist, and then he began to notice this abnormality phenomenon. It seems that the gathering of celestial bodies once every 5,000 years is coming soon. Colin looked up at the treacherous sky through the window, and couldn't help murmuring. In the vast universe, the Earth is not a single entity, there are 8 other similar galaxies or countries. The nine kingdoms together form a mysterious tree of life in the universe. They are Asgard, Aesir, Protoss, Vanirheim, Wanner, Protoss, Nidavi, Dwarf, Yafheim, Light Elf, Midgard, Earth, Jotunheim, Titan, Wat Alheim, Dark Elf, Helheim, where Hela was imprisoned, Muspelheim, Fire Demon. The nine kingdoms revolve around Midgard, just like the Earth revolves around the Sun. The nine kingdoms will be arranged in a straight line every 5,000 years. This phenomenon is called celestial body aggregation. In this case, the boundaries of the nine kingdoms will be confused. Imagine that these kingdoms are usually separated, but during the parallel period, the entire universe is connected with each other, including the nine major kingdoms. The nine major kingdoms will pass through each other, gravitational light and even matter will collide and mix with each other, and everything will even become chaotic. The last time celestial bodies converged was 5,000 years ago. The nine kingdoms joined together. The dark elf Malekith tried to use type particles to bring the universe back to darkness, but was defeated by the Asgard army led by Thor's grandfather Bor. Type particles are also archived. 5,000 years later, there will be another celestial body gathering. This time, the dark elves who have been dormant for a long time are bound to make a comeback, and the nine realms will also rise again. In the following time, Colin became familiar with how to use the Leo Golden Saint Cloth, as well as comprehending the inheritance of Aeolian warfare contained in it. There are huge secrets in this set of golden holy clothes, waiting for Colin to dig them out. The more you understand, the more you will be able to realize how powerful the zodiac holy clothes contain, one of the most powerful constellations in the zodiac. At the same time, as Tony said, in different regions of the Earth, abnormal phenomena of gravity or light occur from time to time, and the laws of physics are shaken. As time goes by, it is estimated that one day after more than a month, the aggregation of celestial bodies will reach its peak. At that time, the entire nine kingdoms will be connected together, they can pass through each other, and even cause many unimaginable chaos. The Dark Elves of Walter Alheim will never miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and let it go. Definitely, such a crisis is also accompanied by opportunities. According to the plot of Thor 2, type particles, that is, reality gem, will also reappear in the world before the nine stars. On this day, Colin was practicing in the quiet room of the Seaview Villa, when the magic ring of the heart on the thumb of his left hand suddenly trembled, as if he had received some kind of resonance. After the mind gem is embedded in the ring of the God Controller, its sensitivity in all aspects is also greatly increased. Only infinite gems can resonate with infinite gems, which also means that reality gem has reappeared in the world. Now we must go to London at once. The first thought that flashed through Colin's mind was to rush to London. In the original book, Jane Foster found type particles next to the warehouse of a certain shipping company in London and was possessed by them. Soon, Colin stepped into the portal and came to New York to Holy Place. If you want to use the magic portal to teleport to a certain place, you first need to imagine and simulate its environment in your mind, but since this time, Kaylin has been immersed in cultivation and has not been to London, so naturally he cannot pass the teleportation door to go. Fortunately, New York to Holy Place, one of the three major holy places, is interconnected with London, Holy Place and Hong Kong Island to Holy Place, and can be unimpeded. After stepping into the teleportation array, the next moment Colin appeared from London to Holy Place, and then rose to a high altitude and walked quickly in the sky. Following the induction of the Lord of the Soul, he passed many tall buildings. Soon, I found the warehouse in the suburbs. Just like in the original book, Jane Foster, who came to investigate the abnormal gravity phenomenon with her companions, accidentally entered a different world and was possessed by type particles. After Thor learned that Jane Foster was missing, he hurried away from Asgard. Later, the two were able to meet again, but the police in London were also alerted. It seems that I came at a bit of an untimely time. Colin slowly fell from the sky like a banished fairy, and said to the two. Colin Stark, why are you here? I haven't seen you for half a year, it's okay. When Thor saw Colin's arrival, he couldn't help being slightly taken aback, subconsciously scanning his eyes to find Tony's figure, while Jane Foster at the side recognized the savior who showed his might in New York half a year ago at a glance. Compared to the Asgard warrior who is struggling to quell the unrest in the Nine Realms, I have a relatively easy life. After a pause, Colin looked at Jane Foster, and said to Thor with a hint. I came here because I sensed a strange energy fluctuation here. Presumably you should have noticed it too. Thor nodded in disbelief. The 9 kingdoms are about to be connected in a line, and there will be a series of phenomena. There are indeed many unusual things in such a situation. Thor takes what Colin said deeply. After all, Colin is also a strong man in the Heavenly Father realm, comparable to God King Odin. It is not surprising that he can see the abnormal energy here. By the way, how is your brother Tony? You know, he's still busy with the company's high-tech products. Understood. Those product blueprints you gave Tony to study were indeed quite esoteric. Thor couldn't help laughing. He had heard Tony say earlier that big brother Colin would often come up with some unimaginable product design drawings for Tony to study. Those design drawings were so advanced that even gave Tony a headache, but I couldn't hold back my curiosity and wanted to explore. In this way, Tony has been immersed in a large number of scientific research tasks, and going out to perform tasks with Avengers has become a rare moment of leisure for him. All of this is thanks to Colin, and I don't know whether it is lucky or unlucky to have such a big brother. While Colin was talking to Thor, on the other hand, Jane Foster was being questioned by the Duncan police for trespassing on private areas. Are you Jane Foster? Yes. This is a private territory. You are in danger of trespassing illegally. Come with us. Saying that, a London policeman came forward to take Jane Foster back to the police station for investigation. But when he touched Jane Foster's clothes, a violent impact came out of Jane Foster's body, and the unexpected impact knocked the surrounding policemen upside down, and the glass shattered, even the car was overturned. Thor resisted the impact, and quickly ran over to lift the unconscious Jane Foster up from the ground. Jane, are you alright? Thor, what happened? Jane Foster was also surprised when she woke up from the coma. This is TIE particles. Seeing this situation, Colin stared and his pupils shrank slightly. There is no doubt that TIE particles have already possessed Jane Foster's body. When the host is in danger, TIE particles will fight back. Quote. Put your hands over your head and step back. The sudden scene shocked all the London policemen present, and when they came back to their senses, they all raised their pistols and aimed at Jane Foster with vigilance. A leading policeman issued a warning. Thor, the lady is unwell. Cop, she's dangerous. Seeing these policemen relentlessly pestering him, Colin frowned slightly, and the pupil of his right eye suddenly turned scarlet, turning like a blood-colored windmill, exuding a strange and mysterious aura. Hiss hiss. The moment the policemen's eyes met Colin's eyes, they were suddenly in a trance. They vaguely heard a strange noise coming from their hands, and they all lowered their heads to look, only to see poisonous snakes entwining their wrists. He swallowed the red letter, looking like he would choose someone to devour. They turned pale with fright, ignoring any thinking, frightened and flicked their wrists hastily to break away from the poisonous snakes. Under the surprised eyes of Thor and Jane Foster, the policemen for some reason threw away all the guns in their hands. Qian Jiao. Facing Thor's puzzled gaze, Colin shrugged his shoulders lightly. This is just the most basic illusion, similar to Loki's phantom magic tiger. I see. Thor nodded thoughtfully. He looked up at the dark clouds above his head, and then asked Colin tentatively, honestly, do you want to go to Asgard? My father Odin has long wanted to see you one side. Colin spread his hands and said, why not? Anyway, there's nothing else going on right now. So Colin went straight over and stood with Thor and the others. I saw fiery red magma-like flame patterns emerging from the ground where they were standing, outlining a mysterious outline and texture. The next moment, a towering beam of light descended from the sky, instantly engulfed them, and then turned into a shocking rainbow light that shot up into the sky and disappeared into the sky. Looking at the spectacular scene of Colin and others flying into the sky, Jane Foster's companions and the London policemen all looked confused. Shua. Colin was in the group of 7 colored colorful beams of light, and the world was spinning in front of his eyes. All the stars are retreating rapidly. Only a blurry afterimage can be seen. Time and space are distorted. Kalin and his party seem to have left hundreds of millions of light years behind, and they travel through endless time and space in a blink of an eye. I don't know how long this time travel has passed. When Colin came back to his senses, he and Tony Jane Foster had appeared together in a mysterious gold hall. A burly man with gold eyes and helmeted armor guards the celestial entrance. Finally here again, he. Jane greeted the burly man. It was not the first time he had come. Welcome to Aesir God Realm. Heimdall slowly pulled out the guardian sword from the sword platform, and smiled slightly at Jane Foster and Colin. Colin nodded slightly to Heimdall as a greeting. As the patron saint of the entrance to the heavens, Heimdall's duty is to guard Bifrost, and at the same time use his Heimdall's eye to perceive all things, to penetrate endless time and space to observe billions of creatures in the universe. In other words, it is the god of Dor, but this god of Dor is not an ordinary person. 663 is one of the most trusted warriors of the father of god Odin, and looking at the entire Asgard, the only person who can open Bifrost Odin's eternal gun and Heimdall's guardian sword, which shows how important his role in Asgard is. It was Heimdall who was ordered by Thor to open Bifrost with the guardian sword just now, and help them transfer to Asgard. After looking at Jane Foster, Heimdall's gaze turned to Colin again, and a flash of surprise flashed in Gold's pupils. You know, his Heimdall eye can see through almost all objects and creatures in the Nine Kingdoms, but Colin is an exception, as if surrounded by layers of fog, making it difficult to see through and mysterious. The astonishment in Heimdall's eyes was fleeting, and he watched Kai Lin-Yi and his party enter the king of God Aesir. After walking out of the teleportation hall, the scene in front of him suddenly became clear. Colin looked around and saw a seven-colored colorful Bifrost extending from his feet to the end of his sight, where crystal-like skyscrapers towered into the sky. Magnificent. On both sides of Bifrost are the rushing water of the heaven BFAJ boundary, and the high-hanging waterfall pours down like a silver stream, splashing hazy water vapor. In the sky of Asgard, the azure satellite hanging upside down in the sky can be faintly seen. The clouds are steaming and the sky is so bright, it is like being in a strange dreamland. But Thor at the moment was not interested in enjoying the beautiful scenery. He was worried about Jane Foster's physical condition, so he took Jane to the treatment room as soon as he returned to Asgard. Naturally, Colin would not miss this opportunity to observe TIE Particle's chance. In the treatment room, several therapists are concentrating on using the soul-forging furnace to check the mysterious substance possessed in Jien's body. This is non-Earth matter, have you seen it? I've never seen it before, but the energy churning in her body is enough to kill her. Hearing what the therapist said, Thor couldn't help but his heart sank, but in order not to worry Jane, he still forced a smile and didn't show it. Let me see the true face of TIE Particles. Colin, who was standing on the side, was also secretly using Sharingan to observe the viscera and meridians in Jane's body through Jane's body. An anatomical diagram of the microscopic world of the human body appeared in Colin's eyes at a glance. I saw that Jane's body was filled with a kind of liquid dark matter, and the TIE particles lingered and drifted without rules like scarlet blood threads, erratic, and at the same time absorbing Jane's vitality at a speed visible to the naked eye. The life force of Jane in the past is constantly passing away. TIE Particles is the reality gem among the 6 Infinity Stones. It can turn a person's ideas into reality without exaggeration, and it can also distort reality into illusion. It is probably the most powerful one among the 6 Infinity Stones. The codes of science and the laws of nature are meaningless before it. Buzzing. After close contact with TIE Particles, the ring of the resetter on Colin's right thumb suddenly vibrated slightly, as if there was a faint echo with the reality gem. What's the situation? Could it be that there is some connection between the ring of the resetter and the reality gem? Colin thought to himself, and suddenly a bold guess arose in his mind. If you think about it carefully, there is really some kind of connection between the two. Reality gem can turn a person's thoughts into reality without exaggeration, and can also distort reality into illusion. And the ring of the resetter, which can reset and combine objects on a subatomic level. In a sense, both are a kind of recombination of natural substances, between reality and illusion, and both exist beyond the laws of physics. It can be said that the two have similar approaches but equally satisfactory results. Just when Colin was about to take a step closer to confirm his conjecture, a sullen majestic voice came from far and near, interrupting Colin's thoughts. Thor, are my words just deaf ears and have no effect on you at all? As soon as the words fell, an old man with white beard and hair, blindfolded on his right eye, and wearing the armor of the God King stepped into the treatment room. But she's sick. Seeing this, Thor quickly explained, with a bit of respect in his eyes. Who else can make Thor so respectful, except God King Odin? She's mortal, and mortals will definitely get sick. Odin dismissed the healers with a wave of his hand, and the Lord of Asgard acted with supreme authority. I brought her here because we could help her. She cannot enter the halls of our Aesir god's domain, just like some dishes cannot be served on the table. Once in the treatment room, Odin and Thor argue over Jane Foster. Odin has always been vehemently opposed to the marriage between his son and his Earth girlfriend. The reason is simple: Thor is a god in the sky with a long lifespan of 5,000 years, while Jane is a mortal on Earth who can only live for a mere 100 years. 100 years later, while Thor is still an upright man, Jane has become one. In Odin's view, if these two people were together, it would only leave Thor with endless pain, so he had to prevent the passing of time and strongly opposed this marriage. Odin and Thor are like a pair of father and son who love and kill each other. As long as they meet, they will quarrel sharply. However, Odin soon stopped arguing with the other party, and turned his attention to Colin. His star-like eyes couldn't help but condense slightly. It seems that apart from this useless mortal, Asgard has ushered in a new generation. Distinguished guest. Odin looked at the man in front of him with sword eyebrows and starry eyes, a dignified appearance, and 10 strange rings on each of the 10 fingers of his hands. With an idea, Thor diverted the topic about Jane, and introduced to Odin solemnly, "Father, this is the Colin Stark who I told you about repelling the Chitauri in Midgard. See, the king of all living beings." Colin put his right hand on his chest and gave the other party a little salute. No matter what you should have when you come to someone's place. You don't need to be too polite. I was lucky enough to witness your bravery during the battle against the Chitauri in Midgard. You are indeed one of the few Heavenly Father realm powerhouses in the 9 realms. Odin nodded, a rare expression of admiration appeared on his wrinkled old face. When the Battle of New York happened, Odin also used Odin's divine power to watch the battle. For Colin's terrifying combat power that penetrated the time-space wormhole, the memory is still fresh. Whether it is Thor or other Asgard warriors, they are a little surprised. They rarely see that Odin, who is above the gods, will, 7 or 6-0, praise a person without hesitation. The God King has won the prize. Facing Odin's appreciation, Colin said calmly. In terms of realm, Colin and Odin are both level godfathers, so even facing the king of God, Colin is not afraid at all. Come to the guards, send this woman back to Earth immediately, and I will treat this distinguished guest well. Odin directly ordered Jane to leave. He has great respect for the powerful Colin, but it does not include such an ordinary Earth woman as Jane. There is a certain substance in her body, father, a substance that has never been seen before. Thor tries to convince Odin to keep Jane in Asgard for treatment. The human world has its own therapist, called a doctor, let the doctor handle it. Odin ignored Thor's plea and without hesitation ordered the guards to bring Jane back to Earth. Following Odin's orders, several guards stepped forward to take Jane away. No, don't. Thor hurriedly shouted, but before he finished speaking, he heard a bang, and the guards who had just approached were immediately bounced away by the impact force from Jien's body, and Curry in the London shipping warehouse just now. What happened was exactly the same. Fortunately, these Asgard guards are physically stronger than ordinary people, and there is nothing serious. Seeing this, Odin's pupils shrank suddenly, and he stepped forward to use Odin's divine power to investigate Jane's situation, with an expression of disbelief in his eyes, and murmured, "Impossible." Thor said with some uncertainty, "It seems that something in Jane's body is protecting her." Whether it was Thor or the Asgard guards present, they were both surprised by the mysterious substance possessed in Jane's body, while Odin frowned, looking thoughtful. No, to be precise, type particles are protecting themselves from harm. Seeing that the timing was almost up, Colin walked over in time and explained. You also think these are type particles? Odin asked with a look of surprise. That's right. Colin nodded. Before the Big Bang, there were 6 gems refined from the essence of singularities called infinite gems, space gems, power gems, mind gem, time gem, soul gem and reality gem, corresponding to 6 basic attributes. And this reality gem is type particles. It can turn a person's thoughts into reality without exaggeration, and it can also distort reality into illusion. Any physical law is meaningless in front of it. Presumably the king of gods is very concerned about this type particle. Particles should not be unfamiliar, right? Having said that, Colin narrowed his eyes and looked at Gong meaningfully. With his hands on his back, Odin's deep and wise eyes like the sea of stars were slightly distracted, as if he had been evoked a long-term memory, and he said in a deep voice, according to the secret history of Asgard, there was indeed matter left before the Big Bang. Type particles seem to be one of them. The 9 kingdoms are not static. They have dawn, and they definitely have dusk. Before dawn, the dark forces, that is, the dark elves, used to dominate the world and dominate one side. The dark elves, which originated from the boundless darkness, want to steal the light. Thor picks up the conversation and says, I know those stories, my queen mother told me when I was little. Odin nodded and continued. Their leader, Malekith, used the dark matter type particles that remained before the explosion of the universe to create a kind of weapon ether. Other pre-universe substances are usually stone-like, but the ether is liquid and constantly changing. It transforms various substances into darkness, looks for hosts to live in, and absorbs energy from the vitality of the destination. The initial power of the ether may not be strong enough compared to other infinite gems, but whenever the ether swallows a world in the 9 realms, its power will increase exponentially. The universe returns to Long Yi. Quote. Thousands of years ago, the convergence of celestial bodies occurred, and the 9 kingdoms joined together. The dark elf Malekith tried to use the ether to return the universe to darkness, but was defeated by the Asgard army led by my father Bor, and the ether was also sealed up. I just didn't expect that on the eve of a new celestial body aggregation, the ether would reappear in such a way. Maybe this is fate. Odin sighed, and couldn't help but marvel at the turn of fate. The next moment he seemed to realize something, looked up at Colin, with suspicion and puzzlement in his eyes. But this is the secret history of Asgard, how did you know it? As soon as this was said, everyone, including Jane and the Asgard guards, looked at Colin as if attracted by a magnet, trying to detect some clues from his expression. As Odin said, this is the secret history of Asgard. Even if other people from the 9 realms knew it, it would probably be lost in the long river of time. How did Colin know this secret? Thinking about it so far, it can't help but make people a little suspicious. Facing everyone's scorching eyes, Colin rubbed his nose and smiled calmly. When I was practicing with Earth's supreme mage, I was able to practice a magical oriental divination technique, which can divination the past, insight into the history of the universe. Is there such a magical divination technique? I have also heard a little about this matter. This kind of divination is also called metaphysics. The Chinese people in the east of Midgard have been summarizing the laws of the universe and nature since the ancient barbaric era. After being perfected by many sages, it is used to predict the success or failure of people, things in the past, present and future. Thor testified that he once stayed on the earth for a period of time, and he couldn't extricate himself from the delicacies of the earth, especially the delicacies of Sha. Over time, he also learned a lot about Chinese culture. Unexpectedly, there is such a miraculous secret method in the 9 realms, predicting the past and the future. Good or bad, success or failure, this is something that the venerable and even the 5 creation gods can do, it is really incredible. Hearing this, Odin couldn't help being amazed, and he was even more impressed with Colin, who was regarded as a god-man. If in Odin's impression, Colin was a strong man in the heavenly father realm who could rival himself, then the current Colin is even more mysterious and unknown, which made Odin feel a sense of awe in his heart. This delicate scene was seen by Colin, and he couldn't help laughing. Believe it. It seems that the king of God is sometimes fooled. Is there a way to destroy these type particles? Thor glanced at Jane, who was suffering from type particles, and couldn't hold back his curiosity and asked Colin. 2.0. Type particles are the remnants before the Big Bang. Even the Big Bang can't do anything to it. Do you think there is any way to destroy it? Besides, there is still an inseparable thread between type particles and Malekith. It is even more difficult to break the fetters of it. Colin raised his brows and asked back, and then there was a flash of light in his eyes. However, I have vaguely figured out how to crack it, but it will take time to prove it. At the same time, Colin looked intently at the magic ring on his left thumb. Are type particles really indestructible? This is not necessarily. In the original book, Thanos cancelled and destroyed the Rice guns and infinite gems after he became famous. There is a mind gem embedded in the Lord of the Soul Ring. It stands to reason that Colin can make the two of them offset and destroy it with all his strength. Thoughts were surging in his mind, and a plan to capture type particles emerged in Colin's mind. According to the development of the plot, Colin estimates that Malekith, awakened by the energy emitted by type particles, will lead the Dark Elves to attack Asgard soon. This may be a crisis for Asgard, but it is an opportunity for Colin. Whether he can capture type particles or not is all about it. When Colin said that there is a way to crack it, both Odin and Thor let out a long sigh of relief, and most of the stones in their hearts dropped. In order to welcome Colin's arrival, Odin held a grand banquet in the palace, entertaining this distinguished guest from afar with the highest standard of treatment. During the banquet, there were staggered cups, and Asgard's unique singing and dancing added to the fun. From time to time, cheerful and lively chatter and laughter came from the palace, which can be described as very lively. Next, Colin stayed in Asgard for a while, and at the same time, he learned more about Asgard, the heavenly realm. As a country of advanced civilization, Asgard has many high-tech products. For example, the Soul Forge that can transfer molecular energy, the airship that can conduct amphibious operations in the air and sea, and the energy shields and photon cannons scattered throughout the capital. Although it is said that the technology of Aesir God's domain is much stronger than that of Earth, it is not so exaggerated. In contrast, the brave Asgard warriors are 15 times more advocating force and have a strong martial arts style, so you can see the scene of Asgard warriors training and fighting with swords, guns, swords and shields everywhere in the martial arts field. Thousands of years ago, Odin and his eldest daughter, death god Hela, relied on such a brave and skilled Asgard army to sweep across the 9 realms and dominate the universe. It is worth mentioning that Gungnir, the eternal spear used by Odin, and Colin's Agamotto spear belong to the spearmen. Through thousands of years of fighting, Odin has summed up a set of eternal marksmanship. Seeing that he is happy with hunting, Colin proposed the idea of learning marksmanship with Odin. Odin, who has not been on the battlefield for a long time, is also very itchy, and he and Kay-Linny are learning marksmanship together. When the two sides were exchanging marksmanship, Colin also gained a lot of new insights into marksmanship. After mastering it, his marksmanship has improved a lot in Invisible, which has benefited a lot and is of great benefit. Between Invisible, the relationship between Colin and Odin also got closer, and they learned more about Jung-En and Asgard. It is worth mentioning that there is also a treasure named Agamotto Crystal Ball in the treasure house of Odin. This is a treasure that Odin accidentally discovered in a distant universe when he was conquering the 9 realms. Agamotto's crystal ball and Agamotto's divine spear are both artifacts sacrificed by the ancient venerable Agamotto, and there are inextricably linked between them. Unexpectedly, there are so many origins between the two. During this period, Colin also stopped by to see Loki, the defeated man who was imprisoned in the underground prison. Facing this former defeated general, Colin couldn't help mocking him. Although Loki was furious, he was helpless in the prison. He couldn't help but recall the fear of being dominated during the New York War, and the shadow in his heart. The area seems to have deepened a bit. With the passage of time, the inline phenomenon of the 9 realms became more and more obvious, and the gravitational light and even the matter became abnormally disordered. The originally separated 9 realms, like 9 huge amounts of light circles, slowly gathered together, faintly trends aligned in a straight line. And because Jane Foster was absorbed by the type particles in his body was deteriorating and getting weaker and weaker. This made Thor worried, and he could only hope that Colin could complete the cracking method as soon as possible. On this day, in the magnificent temple of Asgard, Colin, God King Odin, and Queen Frigga are discussing how to deal with the coming chaos. At this moment, a guard rushed to report to the God King, there is a commotion in the dungeon, and some prisoners are escaping from the prison, and Prince Thor rushed over immediately. Colin raised his eyebrows slightly, and his eyes flickered. They're finally here. As expected, those dark elves who woke up from their slumber couldn't hold back, and launched a surprise attack on Asgard. Odin was slightly taken aback when he heard the words, and immediately ordered, send people to the arsenal right now, and guard it at all costs to ensure the safety of dungeon. I can't leave Thor alone there. Odin spread his palms and took the eternal spear on the weapon rack in his hands. There was a sense of majesty between his brows, and he was about to go to dungeon to quell the rebellion. Odin. Frigga stopped Odin from behind, with a worried look on her face. Frigga, this is a trivial matter, nothing to worry about. Odin patted the back of her hand lightly and comforted him. Take Jane Foster to your bedroom, and I'll go find you when the situation subsides. Before leaving the temple, Odin and Colin exchanged a glance. The two seemed to have some kind of tacit understanding, and nodded in understanding. Then, Frigga followed Odin's wishes, went to find Jane Foster and took her to her bedroom for protection. Colin, on the other hand, activated the wind attribute magic, soaring into the sky, came to the top of the temple, and looked towards the entrance of the heaven along the direction of Bifrost. At the entrance of the heaven realm, a dagger-like fighter plane appeared out of thin air above the teleportation hall, and then rushed towards the capital. As the patron saint of Asgard, Heimdall, who has a keen perception, sensed this situation in time. This is the fighter of the Dark Elves. Heimdall leapt high from Bifrost's Uru cables, scrambled to the top of the dagger, and destroyed its thrusters with the razor-sharp Guardian sword. 300. Only a loud bang was heard, and the dagger fighter crashed on the Bifrost, turning into a pile of waste in the explosion. Heimdall hadn't had time to breathe a sigh of relief. The next moment, a shadow covering the sky and the sun shrouded the sky. He turned his head to look, and saw a huge spaceship with a height of 1,000 meters and a width of hundreds of meters that was like a cross came into view. Immediately afterwards, more dagger-shaped fighter planes poured out from the spaceship. Amidst the ear-piercing sound barrier in the middle, they rushed towards the direction of the temple one after another. The dagger fighters are coming in menacingly, flying across the high-rise Asgard capital city like a butterfly piercing flowers, firing artillery, shoo shoo shoo, to launch a fierce attack. Boom boom boom. With the bursts of roaring, many buildings in the capital of Asgard were damaged, flames were everywhere, and thick gunpowder smoke filled the sky. The photon cannons and flying boats deployed in the capital also responded hastily, and the gold energy surrounding the capital was also activated by Heimdall. However, the Dark Elves had planned it long ago. Before that, they had dispatched the cursed warrior to infiltrate Asgard and wreak havoc inside. Under the combination of inside and outside, several dagger fighters still broke through Asgard's defense line, rushed into the temple quickly, smashed there are several pillars. Seeing this situation, Colin's heart moved, and the corners of his mouth curled up in excitement. Thanks for watching, please subscribe and support our channel.